Councillor Duncan, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Panapa, and Councillor Ash online. What? Yes. Right. We have had a council meeting this morning, so we had the council prayer at that meeting, so there's no need for one now. I'll call for apologies. Is everybody here? I think we've got everybody accounted for, so that's item 2 done with. Public forum, I have a request that the Chief Executive has accepted to past Councillor Jane Dunn, and I'm presuming that this is in response to the order paper, page 55 of your order paper. Jane, would you like to come up here and speak beside me? Jane, you're a past expert at this, you know the rules. You have 10 minutes, including question time. The time is yours, please.
I have a copy of the proposal for anybody here if they'd like to pass that round and have a look at.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Councillors, C and staff. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I'm here on behalf of the large event holders for Te Matapihi to explain further on a proposal put forward on their behalf. As all other options presented to Council did not resolve the challenges of Te Matapihi for the larger event holders. Thank you very much. In the document, it's felt that there is good evidence why these other options, including the lift option from the centre room, do not address the problems for the large event holders. Within the community proposal, a storage area is indicated. This was asked by a number of events holders for storage for permanent events. However, this is a very expensive requirement. The most important is the space for changing and preparation. This is their main request. The space needs to be at the same level, ramp access ideally from the car park, toilet facilities for disabled and able, to be able to have about 200 people, have some kind of system to separate areas for changing, boys and girls, etc., to keep everybody safe and all-inclusive. And this is without taking stage area away, because this is only just a good size now. Unfortunately, the other options do not address all these requirements. They do not fulfil the promises that were made to this community who worked very hard at fundraising towards the building. You have the opportunity now to correct this, not just for the users now, but for future proofing, as this is a very much growing community. The concern is that Council has engaged 2 architects to draw concepts, spending over 21,000 to investigate, and have not contacted the user groups to find out what they require. Please, before you go into any more investigations, have a robust, transparent discussion with these groups to find out what they require. If the outcome is an expensive option, but it fulfills the needs, the council don't want to endorse it, why not take it back to the community to decide, and having both sides having their say. We already have one event that no longer can be held, and other events scaling down because, and instead of growing, they're not growing. Why should this community be in a worse position than what they were before this purpose-built building, especially without their input on how to correct it? So I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from councillors. Just a clarification, a couple of clarifications from me, Jane. the event that will no longer be held is which event?
Liberal arts.
And in terms of the order paper in front of us today, if you're asking the councillors to make a recommendation, there are multiple options within that page 155 report. What would you be asking the councillors to decide?
I'd be asking them, the recommendation is to investigate all of the options that have been so far presented, as far as I can read it.
Okay. And
Before that happens, have a talk to these people, have a talk to these groups, see what they need, see what they require.
so you would be suggesting a further recommendation that there is an engagement with youth groups?
Yes.
Okay. Further questions from councillors?
Yes.
Councillor Wilson.
So I'm looking at this table document that you've sent around and looking at option 4.1, and it may well be my poor eyesight. There doesn't appear to be any scale to this. I'm just trying to... There's a clearway and a fire tank, and in option 4.1, the clearway is still available.
Yes.
But 4.1 is one of the options that's in front of us today to consider.
Right, but that clearway is still clear for traffic between the water tank and the building.
The reason that I asked that, and sorry, Your Worship, if I may, all these documents are signed by representatives of the user groups.
Yes.
So the user groups are endorsing 4.1.
Well, 4.2 is the bigger one, which they would prefer.
4.1 signed as well as 4.2.
Yeah.
So,
But they signed the whole document to say that they had read it and agreed with it.
so if I may again, I think it's relevant. So the point that I'm trying to get to here is we have options on the order paper in front of us today, which we could well support one of these options that are endorsed by the community groups.
It does say within that document the preferred option
Yep.
is 4.2.
And that's one of the options that's in front of us for consideration today. So we could endorse one of those options without having to go back to the user groups.
We could, because they've already endorsed these two. But the recommendation in the order paper was to investigate all the options.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dunn, for coming along today. So I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here because I don't have the document that you have handed out. So just to clarify, I wonder, Adina, is she there? No. So
I'm representing Adina for this paper.
okay, great. So the options that we've been emailed this morning. So am I thinking that Councillor Dunn, when she was you were referring to 4.1, does that correlate with option 5A in the email? Sorry, am I confusing everyone?
No, you're getting some nods around the table, Councillor. And this is something that has been in front of you before, so it's not totally new to you. So you will have it somewhere stored on your computer or in your copious files.
Yes, no, I have. I've actually been emailed all of a whole lot of plans for today's meeting, and they came in this morning. So, but they've got different option numbers on them and names.
The option is the larger option from the community group. That's the preferred one.
So that would be option 5B. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think just allowing other councillors time. Councillor Belsham.
Thank you, Jane, for coming and speaking to this. So I think Councillor Wilson said that option 5A and 5B in our order paper are 4.1 and 4.2. But they've endorsed both options. by signing this paper, they've
They
actually,
signed it to say that they read it all, but it has stated, as I said before, their preferred option is 4.2 within that document.
so 4.1 won't suit their purposes, is that what you're saying?
Not as well as if you read that document. It says it still puts stress on them because they would still have to have children spread throughout the building because there is not enough capability within the smaller option to have the whole school there.
Okay, I think we get the gist of that position. Further questions by councillors, please? Well, Jane, thank you very much for your time. I commend you on the efforts you've gone to bring this to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff, is there anything you want to clarify with councillors before I move on? No.
I was just wondering if I can add one thing.
You're out of time. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. As I touched on when I spoke before, the storage area was a little bit of a wish. So if it means that it puts too much expense to dig down to make that storage area, I would rather have the room. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. A call for conflicts of interest, item number 4. Councillor Hira.
A conflict of interest to be brought up at 10.5.
Okay, thank you. Can you remind me of that when it comes? Councillor Carter.
Pihi Bus Park.
Thank you. And Councillor Galgidi.
Underwood Sport and Recreation Trust here.
Okay, thank you. We will note those, but please remind us of the time when they draw near. Thank you. The confirmation of order of business. I have the order of business as attached. I have a couple of late items that we'll deal with when we come to them at the end of the meeting. One of them is a recommendation from the Martin Community Committee around naming, etc. Is there anything further that you wish to bring to my attention, staff? No, we'll take this read. Confirmation of minutes. Starting page is looking for alterations and corrections, parting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Can somebody please watch the screen? Thank you. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. No, thank you very much. Would somebody like to move the recommendation as without amendment? Councillor Belsham moving, Councillor Carter seconding. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 7. This is the follow-up from previous meetings, I believe, starting about page 28. And Gordon, are you going to take us through this?
I'm happy to take any questions in relation to any of these. Just one update on page 30, that top action about Rainer Lane and Karuru Court. We asked the Martin Community Committee, as was the resolution from Council, to ask the Martin Community Committee for their comment. We've now received that, not in time to update this, and they also agreed with those names. So that's just an update.
Thank you very much. Any further questions around the actions arising? Give you another minute just to refresh your memory. The changing rooms is on our order paper for today. No, in that case I'll move on. I'll move on to Yes, can somebody please receive? Councillor Gordon moving, Councillor Carter seconding. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried, thank you. Moving on to the Mayor's report. Look, I'm certainly going to take this as read. However, there are a couple of other things I will add in. In terms of COVID, the country is very quickly moving to a vaccination requirement for a large number of businesses. This is something that the Chief Executive will want to put in place in some shape or form for this organisation as well. So absolutely, I am encouraging people, please, 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 and double please, get out there, get vaccinated, unless you have some very valid reason. The next one I'll update you on the Three Waters. So at the time of writing, things have moved on quite substantially in this space. So government has decided to mandate and legislate that there will be no decision to be made by councils. So there'll be a process of legislation where the 4 water entities are put into place. As such, we don't have a consultation role. We can continue to put information on our websites and circulate exactly what is going on, because there's a bodies of work that will continue to happen, engaging local government, New Zealand, council representatives around various aspects of the legislation, including rural water schemes, including the role of the economic regulator, including the governance and our involvement in there, including prioritisation of work, all of those sorts of things. But effectively, we tend to be moving now into a transitional role. You know, I understand there will be a large number of people in the community and within councils around the country who are concerned that we no longer have a vote. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is where it's at. I will ask the Chief Executive whether he wishes to make any further comment on points that I've missed. Peter.
Thank you, Worship. I would only underline the comment that you made regarding a consultation. Just like any other central government legislation, the things that impact our people in our district, we will provide as much information as we can, but there is no decision that to be made of council, and therefore there is no consultation. I will encourage and work with my staff to make sure that our information on our website is updated to reflect the decision yesterday by the Minister.
Thank you. I'll take any questions around my report or my mayoral engagements. Councillor Belsham.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, a question around the Three Waters outcome from or announcement yesterday. And so you're right, there's a lot of feedback from within the community about what are we prepared to do as advocates for the community in that announcement from central government. So as a council, is there any opportunity for us to advocate on their behalf the displeasure or distaste in what's happened, what's occurred, because there's becoming a louder and louder voice in amongst the community about their distaste and basically feeling like the assets are being ripped out from underneath them.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Belsham. So there have been numerous requests from various groups of mayors for us to engage, and I have had a request to take part in a Zoom call tomorrow with mayors that have concerns, and I've taken that as a discussion offline with council. The council has agreed that I should take part in that Zoom call. That is not to give a particular view. That's to look at the options that could be ahead of groups. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up in the public forum in essence. And we do have a fairly heavy involvement with entity B in discussions around if it was going to be legislated, how could that best be progressed to get to allay some of our concerns. There are a huge number of councils around the country that have said some of the maths, the dollar figures stack up. However, we are really concerned about this, this and this. So there's a whole lot of range of different views. I'd note that the National Government and ACT have both come out and said that they will try and repeal this legislation. My particular view on that would be it would be a difficult process for government to start unwinding it once they put it into place. But that option's open to them. Take any further questions from engagements or my report. Noting, in case you want to bring it up, there is a letter recommendation around the engagement with Ngāti Waewae, as well as part of my report. Right, I'll move on then, thanks. I'll move that my report be received. Looking for a councillor. Councillor Belsham first. Those in favour? Those against? I'd like to move recommendation 2 that council endorses the proposed approach to build a relationship with Ngāti Waewae, noting that the Rangitikei River Accord could be established. So I'd like to amend the wording from will be established to could be established in the order paper, because it is not a given, it is not our sole right to put this in place, but we'd be effectively advocating for it. I'll move that, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Gordon seconding. Any questions around that? I'll put that recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. We're rocketing through it at this stage. Right, move on to the Chief Executive's report, starting page 44, and I'll hand over to the Chief Executive, Mr. Peter Beggs. Peter.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a short report this month. I will start by just furthering, Your Worship, the conversation on Three Waters, which isn't in my report. When you gave me the opportunity to speak before, I neglected to mention something I think will be of interest to elected members. If you're okay with me just touching on that now.
Sure.
It's important to recall the Minister's announcement yesterday that there will be actually 3 working groups set up. The 3 will be one to discuss the government's or the preferred governance and ownership model and accountability model. And the Minister did speak quite a lot about that, but there will be other working groups, 2 other working groups set up. And this is of interest to us as in our council. The first one is the interface between the reforms and the resource management system. So you will recall in our submission to the Minister at the end of the April period, we expressed concern of the wider reforms, and particularly in the resource management area, and the impact of Three Waters reform on that. And so the Minister has agreed to a working group being set up to identify or look at that interface. And finally, the third working group is how the reform is an approach to transitioning rural community water supplies. And I think that's an important, given the feedback and the conversations that you'd had prior to that letter going to the Minister. The way in which we intend to respond to those working groups is yet to be known until we know the formation and how those working groups intend to engage. but I'll keep you updated on that.
Any further questions? Councillor Dalgety, thank you.
Just the typo, I believe, 6.1, page 46, that number. Oh, no, I understand now. It's 353 with 77 more than the previous year. Sorry, I never understood it when I first read it.
You're happy?
Thank you.
Sorry, I hadn't quite finished, Your Worship, in terms of, thank you for that. But the only other point I'd make in my report is, and it's something His Worship mentioned earlier, was around COVID-19 vaccinations. And really to update you, because it does have an operational impact on staff. The way in which we are approaching this is that we have asked all staff to respond on a voluntary basis to the questionnaire we've sent them. And the questionnaire identifies if they are to be double vaccinated, they've had one and intend to have a second, etc. From that feedback, we will create a risk analysis on what risk we have both to the public as well as to other staff members. And we may have to implement some changes as a result of that. So we're in progress with that survey as we speak. The next stage to that, once I've done staff, will be to involve yourselves as members that regularly come into contact with staff and regularly come into council buildings, and also how we might approach others coming into, not into necessarily the public areas, but into the private areas of council, or I shouldn't say private, but the non-public areas of council, the office. And we do have people coming in, be they contractors or other people that come in for meetings, etc. So that's still to be determined, but you will be asked, it is voluntary, and for those who either do not wish to give advice on their status or advise that they do not wish to be vaccinated, that will form part of our risk analysis.
Are we now at the end?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Sorry.
No, that's right. Would somebody like to move? Sorry, a question online I can't see in the far corner. Councillor Ash?
Yeah, just a question. I'm not too familiar with how the traffic light system will work for council, for people, I don't know, coming in and paying their bills and stuff like that. Where does council sit with that whole system?
Like half the country in bewilderment.
Fair call.
Thanks, Councillor Ash. The answer to that is we're reviewing the traffic light system now and assessing the impacts on council and our activities.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship. Chief Executive, who's undertaking the risk assessment? Is that something you're doing yourself, or are you taking external advice on that, or is it just something that's an internal thing that you're running?
Internal.
By yourself?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No.
So you have your leadership team involved in that, doing the risk assessment on behalf of the organisation?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions? Sorry, by the way, if I missed you, Councillor Ash, just the angle of the screen to where I'm at, I'll have to rely on other people because you're in the glare, so to speak. Or maybe I should say highlighted. Would somebody like to move the receipt of the report, please? Councillor Carter, Councillor Hero, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to representation review, starting page 55. Welcome Ms Gray to the table to take us through that. Just while you're getting yourself put into position, somebody move that these reports be received. Councillor Hero moving, Councillor Gordon seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. The time is yours.
Thank you, Ms Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors. So the purpose of this report is to enable councillors to deliberate on submissions received on the initial proposal for the representation review and to also adopt the final proposal for the representation review. You adopted the initial proposal back in August, which went out for public consultation. We received 11 submissions on the initial proposal and had none of those submitters spoke at the oral hearing. I won't go through everything in the report, but I will just touch on a few key matters. Section 5 of the report provides the officer comment on the submission points received. What we've done is we've categorised it into a few different categories for ease. I will note first it's the section 5.3, the establishment of Maori Awards. There were a number of comments received around the establishment itself. I will just confirm what I've written in the report there, that the establishment of Maori Awards has been a past decision of council, so cannot be considered through this representation review process. So moving on to the matters that can be considered by council, the number of Māori wards, there are a couple of submissions requesting just one Māori ward is established. Moving on to section 5.5, we didn't receive any formal submissions around the naming of the Māori wards, but we have received some recommendations from the Te Rauka Hika committee around the naming of those Māori wards. The next topic raised was around the Southern General and the Central General ward boundary. We received a couple of submissions requesting that boundary alteration does not occur for a couple of the mesh blocks in that area based on communities of interest. And then finally, we received a couple of comments supporting the retention of our Taihape and Ratana community boards. So the next step after today, after council adopts the final proposal, is that we publicly notify that final proposal, and there's a period where either submitters or members of the public, depending on the decisions made today, may either appeal or object to that final proposal. If there are any objections or appeals, or if council makes a decision to not comply with the plus or minus 10% rule, then that final proposal would be considered by the Local Government Commission, and that would happen by April next year. I'm happy to take any questions that any members might have.
So just a clarification of this, we need to respond and address each submission that is valid, i.e. in scope, and give a reason for our decision.
Yes, and you'll see the way the recommendations have been set out for you is that process is set out in recommendation 3. I've suggested that you do it by topic for ease, so rather than doing each submission individually, that it's done by topic.
Thank you very much, and I commend you for the work that has gone into this and the way that it has been presented to both council and the communities. So congratulations on a job well done. Recommendation 2 deals with submissions, including submissions received after the closing date on representation. Would somebody like to move that those be received? Councillor Belsham, Councillor Carter. Councillor Belsham, do you wish to speak to that? Any speakers to it? Otherwise I'll put it to a vote. No, those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Recommendation 3. Does somebody feel confident on moving the recommendation? Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that council reject the submissions 10 and 11 that requested that we adopt the one ward status.
You would need to give a reason for that.
Well, and the reason being that we have a Maori representative committee, Te Rauka Hika, that has basically recommended that we have a 2-ward system for the district, and they operate. It's a democratic group, and they voted accordingly.
Yeah.
If that's sufficient.
My question to staff would be, would that be sufficient? Right. Are you also preparing to recommendation B?
Like I'm just catching up, Your
Do you
Worship.
wish to deal with them separately?
Yeah, I think the number of wards is the first part.
I'll second Your Worship.
So you're seconding, effect recommendation 3A.
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Any further speakers to this? No?
Yeah, yes, Councillor Duncan.
Sorry, Councillor Duncan. And followed by Councillor Ash. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I just would like to support that also because I see our district as being so long and lean that there is there's quite a difference between the north and the south to me in my not particularly Maori sensitive way, but I see that the northern and the southern quite possibly will have different views, and we need to be representing them.
Thank you. Councillor Ash.
Yes, thank you. Pretty much said by Councillor Duncan there, it is a huge district, and I think it would be easier to represent actually having separate wards. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had 3 speakers in favour and any speakers against? No, I'll put it to the vote. Do you need a right to reply? Everybody speaking in favour?
I'd just like to reinforce, why we are doing this. And also, in the reasoning, I guess a key thing that we should stress is that Te Rupi Ahi Ka is the key engagement connection between iwi and Hapu and the district and council.
Right, I'll now put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Is somebody prepared to deal with Southern Central General Ward boundary issue around submissions 6 and 9? Councillor Belsham, you wishing to move?
Yes, the council accepts the submission number 6 and submission number 9, requesting the council, does not transfer part of that's what we were doing, wasn't it? Does not transfer part of the southern ward to the central ward.
Looking for a seconder too. Thank you. Councillor Dalgety seconding. Do you wish to speak to this?
Well, the reason, I guess there's some wording around the reasoning for it, and it's those mesh blocks that had been identified in the proposal that went out for submission. The communities of interest within those mesh blocks do relate to the southern ward, and so the reasoning for them to want to stay in that southern ward makes sense. We understand that it does put the compliance outside of the 10% range, out to 13% or just over 13%. But the deviation, I think, will be something that's taken on board when this whole proposal is reviewed.
Yeah, so there are some words that have been copied from what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. That covers what's been written on the recommendation for the reasonings there. I'm happy with that reasoning.
Back to you, Ms. Gray. Does that satisfy? It's important we get this stuff right, because if we make an error, then we could lose. Right. Any further speakers or questions to Councillor Dalgety?
I just believe that the people in the community have made submissions and represent the communities of interest of that area, and we need to listen to how they feel.
So you're speaking in favour?
Yeah.
Any further speakers? Right to reply?
No.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. we now need to deal with effectively a summation of these as part of recommendation 4. Yeah. Yes, sorry. Would somebody like to move that the council accepts all submissions, excluding the points identified in A and B, that supported the initial proposal? Councillor Hira, Councillor Wilson, I'll put this straight to a vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Moving into where I was, recommendation 4, I'd need some words around that. Have you got some words that would be suitable, please?
Yeah, so I can provide some guidance, Your Worship. So there's 2 matters to deal with here. So the resolution you've just made around the central and southern ward boundary is effectively a change to the initial proposal. So we'll need to include that in that resolution there. The other matter that elected members will need to consider is the renaming of the Maori wards. We didn't receive a formal submission, which is why you didn't just address it in those set of resolutions above. So what we can do is we'll get them up there. Ash has a copy of some suggested words. What we'll start with, Ash, is if we could start with the boundary between the southern and central general wards be amended.
Yeah, and perhaps we just hold fire to doing anything until you've got a complete recommendation on the board.
Yeah. So the way we'll work through this recommendation is we'll deal with this first half. So we'll deal with the southern in general, and we'll seek elected member decision on the naming of the Maori wards, and then we might need to take a quick break before we get to the second half of this resolution. So the suggestions are for the Maori wards. So the resolution would read, and that the Maori wards are renamed as follows, would be the officer recommendation. And that's on the basis of the recommendations that have been received from the Te Raupu Ahika Committee. It is, of course, the elected members' decision as to whether or not anyone wishes to move that recommendation. So the Northern Māori ward gets renamed to TK Tia Ki Uta ward, and the Southern Māori ward is renamed to the TK Tia Ki Tai ward.
For those online, would somebody like to give us a translation, a loose translation around the meaning of those terms and where the recommendation has come from?
Yes, so I'm happy to, Your Worship. So the recommendation has come from our Te Raupu Ahika members. They were requested for comment on the naming of the Māori wards. And in section 5.52 of the report, it talks about those names. So Ki Uta refers to the inland people and Ki Tai to the people from the coastal end.
Thank you. And so it's been circulated through our iwi engagement process to Rupi Ahika to come to this position.
But obviously up to elected members as to what they might want to move that recommendation.
Yeah. Right, would somebody be happy to move recommendation 4 or an alternative to it? Councillor Hira, are you happy to move?
I'm happy to move that the Māori wards are renamed as Tikatea Ki Uta, with a reference somehow put in there that instead of it being called Northern Māori ward, that we potentially call it an Inland Māori ward. And that for the Southern Māori ward changing that to Tikatea Ki Tai, which is the referencing it to the sea. Sorry, I'm looking at it in a couple of things here.
Okay, with the addition of those words inland and coastal
Coastal,
to
thank
the
you.
recommendation, you would be prepared to move that? Looking for a seconder to it, councillor Belsham seconding. Take any questions around this first?
Sorry, just to clarify, are we just moving the Maori Awards bit or the boundary bit as well?
No, we'd be moving the boundary pieces as well, as I understand it. So you'd be also moving the identification of the amendment of the mesh blocks. Any further questions? Do you wish to speak to it?
No.
Councillor Belsham, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Belsham.
I just wanted clarification around, so we're renaming the Northern Maori Ward, but if we're going to rename it, would we have inland as part of the renamed ward in brackets? So we identify that Te Tia Ki Uta ward references the inland, so would we have a reference to inland within its name or along with its name as part of the renaming process? Yeah, that's probably
a clarification, Councillor.
This is purely for people's understanding. Personally, myself, I'd just have Te Kaitea Ki Uta and Te Kaitea Ki Tai, but taking into consideration that people, it gives a better understanding to everyone so they know exactly what we're talking about. So if we removed Northern and we removed Southern, potentially it's inland Māori ward, coastal Māori ward. So whether or not those stay in there,
Can I just clarify? I think we're probably not reading it correctly. So what we're putting to you is that the Maori wards are renamed. They're currently named Northern Maori Ward. So if you want inland and you want coastal, then it needs to be in the Maori translation in the second part. I think that's the confusion. Okay? So if we put inland just before the word ward, after the Maori name. Yeah.
I don't think that we want ward as part of the Maori name, in my view.
All right, in terms of process, let's separate out recommendation 4 into 4A. You're happy with 4A?
Yes.
Looking for a seconder to 4A. I'm separating them out. Councillor Carter, do you wish to speak to it? Any speakers to it? I'll put that to the vote so it's done and dusted. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now we're just dealing with 4B. Councillor Hira, it's your motion.
so that the Māori wards are renamed as follows. So we're getting rid of all of that front part, Te Kaitea Ki Uta and in brackets, inland ward. Don't even have to, because really that's for other people's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not ward.
Just inland.
Yeah.
You could have inland and coastal.
Can I provide just some guidance on the use of ward? It's really just called a ward because that's what it is. The name itself is separate to the concept of the ward. So you quite rightly could go with what you've got on the board, but what they are is a ward. So
the wording that we have up there now is what you want to move. Second, Councillor Belsham. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
No.
Any other speakers to the motion?
It's Councillor Ash.
Councillor Ash?
Sorry, everyone, I can't see what's been written up there. I don't know if you can screen share for a second.
That's difficult, Councillor Ash, in terms of the capability we have to screen share it with you. But I congratulate you on moving your square so you're not in the glare any longer.
Can you see that?
Yep, can see that. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, go back to any further speakers. Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I fully support the wording that Councillor Hedor has put in place. I think it's appropriate that we use terminology that's relevant to this part of our constituency. We support the motion.
Thank you. Is there any other further speakers? I'll go back to right and reply.
I'm happy with what's been put forward.
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now you're going to need a minute to collate this, aren't you?
Yeah, if we could have a quick minute break, that would be
Certainly. Right, we're back on live. Have you got some wording for me, please?
Yes, so we've got some wording up on the screen. So the wording reflects
Councillors, please.
the decisions you've just made. The other aspects of the initial proposal that are up there are aspects that the community did not comment on. So there's no decisions for council to make around those. So my recommendation is you move it as a block.
Thank you. Would somebody be prepared to do that? Councillor Wilson, you're moving? Seconded by? Councillor Hera, you wish to speak to the motion?
No, Your Worship, I don't. I think the report's well founded.
Any further speakers to the motion, or a speaker to the motion? Councillor Belsham.
I've just got a question. Do we signal anywhere in this proposal that council confirms its requirement or continual establishment of Te Rupu Ahi Ka as the iwi and Hapu engagement group? Does this have to be signalled within this document?
It doesn't have to be signalled in this document. We have signalled that in the past, so I
It's
think it is
external.
dealt with.
That's fine. I'm just making sure that it's.
If you'd like to re-strengthen that it's unnecessary.
If it's not required.
Okay. Any other speakers? Otherwise, I put it to the vote. Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.2. This is the local Easter Sunday trading policy that was adopted for public consultation. Mr. Forster, you wish to take us through this?
So this one wasn't adopted for consultation. It's recommended to be adopted for public consultation. Policy planning received the report and recommended that it be. So I'm just happy to take the report as read and take any questions.
Somebody like to move the receipt of the report? Councillor Gordon, seconded Councillor Hedera. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Any questions around the report? You have seen this report in various shapes and forms before, especially through policy planning. Somebody like to move recommendation 2? Councillor Gordon as chair of policy, quite appropriate. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. Councillor Gordon, do you wish to speak to it?
I think we had, well, no, sorry, yes, I do wish to speak. We did have quite a good session within policy. We threshed this about, so I think it's really been well aired, and so I think we should just move to go out.
Thank you. Any speakers? Right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We now need to go through a process of hearing submissions. I'll move from the chair that council delegates the hearing of any submission to the Policy and Planning Committee. It's not appropriate for you to move it.
Exactly. All right.
It is seconded by councillor Dalgety. I'm not going to speak to it. I think this is just a process. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next one, still in your portfolio. The food business grading bylaw. Would somebody like to move the receipt of the report? Councillor Carter moving. Councillor Duncan seconding. And those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Mr. Forster.
I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions if any members have any.
I'm so pleased about that. Would somebody like to move recommendation 2 that the submissions be received? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Gordon, do you wish to speak to it?
No.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Recommendation 3, that council, when you're going to have to either or this one, with or without amendment as well. Would somebody like to move a recommendation 3? Councillor Belsham.
That council adopt the food business grading bylaw without amendment.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Carter seconding it. I'm not quite sure I like the reference to what's a nosh shop that's in there, but that's fine. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Belsham?
I think in listening to or reading through the submissions that have been provided when this has gone out for consultation, there's been strong support to retain it, to actually have a food grading bylaw. It's a way of advertising for those businesses that they take pride in the way they deal with the health within their premises. So we've had an overwhelming response to say that a lot of places would like the retention of it, so we need to listen to that and support them.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No? No. Right, I'll put it straight to a vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Yes. Next one is 10.4. This is the funding request from Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust, page 119. Councillor Dalgety, we note your conflict with regard to this. Councillors, I'm happy if Councillor Dalgety stays in the room to be able to answer any questions that arise. Do I have anybody that has an objection to that process? Any advice from the Chief Executive? You okay with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Who's taking us through this? Thank you very much. Go for it.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions.
Questions of the report. There's a question from me. So the report quite illustrates that for us to move in this position, it would be an unbudgeted finance cost. The request is $120,000. First, I'll take some advice, and one of the reasons I wanted Councillor Dalgety to stay in this room. So essentially, this has been brought to us because of the huge amount of work that the Trust have been doing, and you're looking to do this work in a timely manner with what has already been done. Is that the essence of it? And could this work still be done within this swim season? In other words,
Yes, we don't anticipate opening until beginning of December.
So this work, if we approved it, it could happen now and be implemented for this year. Thank you. Any further questions before I come back to you with another question? Right now, my next question is directed in terms of the funding of this. Would it be possible, first of all, council's going to have to make some decisions around the consultation requirement, because we can say we believe that we could do this without consultation. If we require consultation, that's a different ballgame, right? But could we loan fund this and also refer it to an annual plan consideration against the loan? In other words, if we loan funded this, then the way that I'd read it is the chief executive, as an operational team, would be responsible for structuring it some sort of loan position. But we could reconsider it against an annual plan consideration next year. In other words, would it be possible for the council at that stage, if it agreed, to write a loan off against it under an annual plan consideration? Is there anything, would that be a possibility?
I'm not aware of any reason why it wouldn't be.
Okay. I'll go to the chief executive. Am I getting anything in your mind procedurally incorrect at this stage?
No. I believe that you've summarised the potential for a loan up until the 1st of July 30th of June 2022, upon which elected members may wish to make a decision to write off that loan as part of the annual plan.
And that loan, the agreement of that loan, in your view, would sit within delegation?
Yes, I think so. In my delegation?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
And that's the way that I see it.
There's also the significance and engagement whether you need, whether the elected members wish to do it.
Can I clarify one thing on that? On the floor, please?
Certainly.
I'd strongly recommend that if we go down that path, then we consider the wording is that we approve the loan on the basis it may be considered as opposed to we approve the loan on the basis it will be written off. It's the two decisions. One is made today to give the loan. A decision which may or may not happen is kind of not. We don't agree today to write the loan off next July.
We can't agree today to write the loan off. Absolutely not. That has to be an annual plan consideration, in my view. Councillors, I'm not trying to lead you down a path to say this is what must happen. What I'm trying to absolutely portray as the options in front of you. Just before we go into questions or recommendations, can we deal with recommendation 1, that we receive the report? Councillor Belsham, Councillor Gordon, I'll put straight to a vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. I'll take any questions first around the report. And I have questions from somebody online. Councillor Duncan first, Councillor Ash, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. My question is around 2.5 on page 120. Officer recommendation within that is talking about being a final funder for this. How would loan funding the full amount of 120,000, how would that be affected with being a final funder? How would we work that together?
That could still, in my view, that could still occur. So if there was funding that was made available, it would have to be made available within an incredibly short time frame. But we would be I think it would be agreeable that we were the final funder. And I'm getting a nod around the table. So I think that's okay. Councillor Ash.
Yeah, thanks. Just wanting some clarification. Sorry, I was having my internet was stopping and starting. I couldn't quite hear. But were you suggesting that we opt for it to loan fund it, which sounds like a good option, but then did you say to then write the loan off, in which case we'd still be picking up the tab for it? So wanting some clarification around that, but also I'd just be curious to see some numbers around I don't know, months that the pool's actually used and how many. I know I've seen it somewhere at some stage, how many people actually use the pool, so I can have an informed opinion on which.
That report went to the last Assets and Infrastructure Committee.
Exactly what I was going to say. So that
Thank you. I was looking in the council one. Thank you.
has been tabled around usage. The usage for a community pool was incredibly high. Okay, questions still. Councillor Belsham, Councillor Carter. Then I'll be looking to put some motions on the table somewhere here, guys. Councillor Belsham.
Just a couple of questions. So there is comment in the report that there have been external funding applications made. Are there any still outstanding or waiting to be heard? It's probably a direct question. There are amounts.
So the lotteries was in the vicinity of 85,000, and we're in the process of applying to the Arthur Wheeler Leeds Town Trust.
So if there was a recommendation made, it would be up to and would be on the outcomes, based on the outcomes of those funding applications you've already made.
So as I see it, if we're successful in those applications, then that money gets returned back to council. And
one last question, that in the letter provided from the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust, the investment of 120,000 by council, that could be potentially be reduced to 70,000 on the delaying the painting of the pools. And then the comment says, however, there is a huge cost for draining and refilling the pools. Approximately, how much does it cost to do that?
2,000 to 3,000 each time, is my understanding.
That would be the cost if it was delayed, additional cost if it was delayed.
You'd also have to re-warm the water.
Is it heated?
No.
It's not heated.
Sunlight.
Yeah.
We'll pray for a hot summer. Okay, thank you. That's
So just to clarify, so for instance, if we structured a loan, if lotteries came through and gave $80,000, then the need for that loan would diminish, and that would be an engagement with the chief executive in terms of that process. Is that how you see it, understand it?
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
I just have one comment and perhaps a little concern. Looking at this report, it's a good report. There's a lot of information in there. I think the options that have been presented to us with the recommendations 1 through to 4 are very clear, but nowhere does it say anything about writing off a loan because we've not received that request. So to me, that shouldn't even be a consideration at this table because it has not been requested. It has not been requested by the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust or by anyone. So I think we should actually be dealing with the information that we've got in front of us. That is potentially a loan up to $120,000, and there is a recommendation for that, and that may be reduced by some final funding that may come from outside sources. I don't think we should be having any consideration about writing off any loans because there has been a request for none.
No, and you're absolutely right. What I was asking was procedurally, if you structure a loan, is there a possibility to do that in the future? I'm certainly not asking any shape or form for that to happen at this meeting. Right, I'm looking for some motions here, guys. Councillor Gordon, please.
Just one final question, Your Worship. Councillor Dalgety mentioned a lotteries application of 85. There was another application?
Arthur Wheeler Leeds Town Trust.
You haven't got a number on attached?
No, that's not a normal. It's basically an application, and they consider it. And so it'll be up to them to
They just consider the entirety. Okay.
Councillor Belsham.
I'm happy to move recommendation 2, that council does agree to provide funding to the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust to complete the redevelopment project at the Hunterville Swim Centre, and that council does not request a consultative process as defined in the significance and engagement policy to confirm this funding.
I'm happy to second that. Do you wish to speak to it?
In reading the report, this trust has brought in a significant amount of money to date to basically allow this asset to be a well utilised and well respected one within the Hunterville community, and I believe it is up to us as a council to support that group in looking after the facility that also looks after our communities and our Hunterville community. So I'm prepared to support it with this recommendation.
In terms of speakers, I have myself next. I have Councillor Duncan, Councillor Ash, Councillor Gordon. It may well get to the stage where we have 3 speakers in favour, and I'll be looking for speakers against, or the other way round. We'll see where we go to, or I'll see if council is asking me to set aside standing orders to allow more people to speak. I'll speak to this. Look, I wholeheartedly support this. Of all of our communities in our district, this is the one community that really gets in and does the mahi. They make things happen. They've saved council literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 10 years or so. The town hall project, our building, completely done up at volunteer labour, professional volunteer labour. I think we contributed something around 20,000 for the roof, and other than that, we got a totally repurposed building. I have to take my hat off to that community in terms of what they, and I think they deserve it. And for us to put this work off and effectively increase the cost significantly, I think would be a real pity. The next speaker I have is Councillor Duncan. So I've spoken in favour. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, here. The Hunterville community are amazing. I totally agree with everything you just said then, Your Worship. I have a wee concern that perhaps we should, that recommendation 2, perhaps to clarify the wording, that council does agree to loan fund the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust to complete the development project. I just wonder if that's a bit clearer.
So you're wishing to move that as an amendment, or would the mover be happy to include the words loan fund?
Well, there's a subsequent recommendation coming that will speak to how this has been funded. Sorry, so this is just a council agreeing to fund, and then a subsequent motion will come to explain the way it is funded. So I think it's probably preemptive to add it into this recommendation at this stage.
Okay.
I'm happy with that. Sorry, I didn't see that.
So we now have 3 speakers in favour. Is there anybody wishing to speak against this? Councillor Ash.
I don't know that it's actually against it per se, but I would be hesitant to be agreeing to this without the wording that it'll be loan funded. I mean, if this was to go through and then be supported from an unbudgeted fund from somewhere as opposed to loan funding, I'd feel very, very uncomfortable with that. So while I'm in favour of this in principle, I'm in favour of it being loan funded as long as the trust feels that they are able to service that loan. I'm certainly in favour of that, but I wouldn't be in favour of this motion without that consideration in there.
So we have 1 speaker against. And which may or may not be dealt with under recommendations to follow. Any other speakers against? Right, I'll put it to the vote. Will write a reply?
No.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 3. Would somebody like to move that in terms of a loan position, I understand? Councillor Belsham.
Yes, I'd like to move that the funding of up to $120,000, GST exclusive, be funded as a loan.
End of story.
End of story.
Looking for a seconder to that. Who's seconding? Councillor Ash is seconding that. Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to speak to it?
To amend.
Sorry?
I'd like to amend.
Motion to amend. The motion was
of that one.
Yeah. Can you give me an amendment, please?
Up to $120,000 as final funder, loan funding, because it doesn't say as final funder in there, in your original motion. Sorry, Councillor.
Rather than going through a full amendment, are you happy with that?
I'm happy to have it amended to be as final funder.
So the seconder, would you be okay with just the amendment there being put in that way? Thank you. Any further speakers to this motion? Councillor Gordon.
Yes, Your Worship, I do support the motion, but and I'd like to go back to some of the points that have been raised in the report, because I think it's a very, very good report. I think there's some key stuff in here, and I think it's worth all of our communities thinking about it. First of all, this management of this asset is in a trust, and there's a key line at the end of paragraph 2.2, non-ownership of the facility means that funding for asset renewal has not been included in council's asset management plans. And I think that's absolutely key, because this, whilst we are almost bending over backwards to help this trust out, it's not RDC's asset. It might revert to us if that trust ever went belly up and walked away, but it's not ours. And I think there's a certain amount of responsibility goes with asset ownership. And, I've sat in this room for quite a few years, and His Worship just brought up the issue of the Huntable roof on the town hall. There is a bit of history about this group and other groups, not the only one coming along at 5 seconds after midnight and saying, oh, by the way, we're a bit short, we need help. I think better future planning could help some of this. It's all there in the report, but look, I support the loan funding, helping this group out. But as a final, what is the word? Final funder. But I think that's where we should, end it, and any thought of any other stuff in the future, we deal with that as it arrives.
Thank you. I'll just go to the Chief Executive, make sure the process is right here in front.
Thank you, Worship. I think the processes are fine. I think Councillor Ash, where she was going with her comment before, and as I had said earlier in policy and planning, in finance this morning, that the recommendations need to stand on their own. And I would encourage you that recommendation 2 on its own is quite open-ended. That recommendation 3 must link to recommendation 2. So I'd recommend for Councillor Belsham as the mover that instead of saying that the funding, but that the funding agreement in recommendation 2 be up to, if that makes sense. So that it's linked. Recommendation 2 as it stands could be as an open-ended checkbook effectively.
Yeah, I take your point that either recommendation 2 or recommendation 3 needs a link between them effectively.
Yes.
So because recommendation 2 has been carried, I don't want to go there, but I would accept a recommendation 3 providing a link to recommendation 2 would be the way I'd prefer to have this dealt with. So what words are you suggesting in there to do that?
I'd be recommending to Councillor Belsham as the mover that recommendation 3 be read that the funding outlined
Agreed to and recommendation.
agreed in recommendation 2 is up to then up to $150,000, comma, be funded as a loan, comma, with council being the final funder.
Can I just suggest one thing there?
Yep.
And after GST exclusive, you say be offered as a loan?
Oh, yeah.
Because if recommendation 4 doesn't get through,
Yes.
Yeah.
then we don't want to commit to it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Right. Are you happy with that?
I'm happy to accept the Chief Executive's recommendations, that the wording does need to stand alone. So if someone does read this who hasn't been part of this meeting, that they can understand the flow. In actual fact, recommendation 4 needs to be linked as well if you're looking at the whole.
Councillor Ash, you're happy? Look, I think we're there. Do you wish to speak as a... Any speakers to this? Right, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We need, I'll move that the conditions of the loan be determined by agreement between the Chief Executive and Chair of the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust. I'll move that, looking for a seconder to that.
Your Worship, I'm happy to second, but I think we should be inserting a link back to recommendation 3, so the conditions of the loan as recommended in recommendation 3.
Yes, thank you. I'll agree with that. And you're seconding?
I am.
Yeah. Look, I don't know that I really need to speak much, but other than say this tidies up process. Any speakers? Right. Councillor Gordon is the seconder. You okay?
Yeah, it's just that, sorry, recommendation 3, it turns into a resolution, so the wording actually has to be that the funding agreed in resolution 2 and resolution 3. Because when they're carried, they become resolutions. Sorry to be pedantic.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. I'll pass my congratulations on to the chair of the trust. Thank you very much, Danny. So we move now, that deals with 10.4, we move through to 10.5. This is the Project Management Office report, page 131. Mr. Benedy, are you going to take us through that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but no, I've got Jess online and she will take council through the report.
Welcome, Jess. Thank you. Time's yours.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions or comments on the report. This month there are a few recommendations associated with the report. Also to note to you that the remediation of the historic landfill on Putarino Road has been removed as a project because it is now practically complete.
Okay, Jess, with your permission, what I might do here is, first of all, can we have somebody receive the report? Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Wilson, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. In terms of you tabling the report, what I'd like to do, Jess, is go through starting Mangaweka Bridge replacement. Are you okay with this as a process?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship.
Any questions around item number 1, the Mangaweka Bridge replacement? And there's no recommendation with this one. No? I'll move on.
Sorry, Your Worship, Councillor Ash.
Councillor Ash, sorry.
Sorry, just a question, not really relating to the bridge per se, but the ablution block there. I'd like to raise a concern in regards to, or a query in regards to that, but I don't know if it's to do with the talk about it under the bridge or somewhere else in the report?
I'm happy to deal with it within this project management report. So it's a question first. What's the question?
Essentially, are there efficiencies that we can make around the ablution block? It's sort of, it's quite a significant amount that we're looking at for the ablution block at the campground. And obviously Hourstone's just across the river and got a really lovely ablution block over there. I'm just really cognizant of spending more ratepayers' money, and is there other options? I don't recall seeing a detailed plan of the ablution block along with the costings, so I'm just concerned about the cost. It's getting close to $500,000, I believe, and I think that's, if we can
Councillor,
be a little bit more prudent, would be good.
Councillor, I'll just check with staff. My understanding is that this has already been through a council approval process.
It has, and if you don't mind me interjecting, we have let the contract, we've signed a construction contract with Emmett who are building the bridge. I'm happy to answer the questions about whether we considered efficiencies from using the ablutions block at Hourstone. But I feel that we've missed the mark in terms of questioning whether it should proceed. Would it help to comment on where we landed when we looked at the ablutions block already available in Hourstone?
Look, Jess, I mean, I think I just have to rule from the chair with this one that we have been through a process. Council has made a decision. If you're challenging that decision, it's probably too late because contracts have been signed, but you'd require probably a notice of motion to do so.
Yeah, obviously, thank you. If things have been signed, then we've certainly missed the boat. I wasn't in favour of the price increases at the last meeting, and I've just been mulling on the costs. But obviously, if we've missed the boat, that's a shame. And I hope in the future we are a little bit more prudent with how we spend our money and look at efficiencies where we can. Thank you.
Councillor, you're starting to get out of order here. In terms of...
I'm done, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, the Martin to Bulls Wastewater Centralization Project. There's no recommendation around that. Any questions around this, Councillor Carter?
Referring to a comment in task completed last month, I don't believe it is the 12.5k Martin to Bulls is a rising main.
What would you call it?
Is it not a pipeline? The rising main is your potable water, is it not?
No.
You are correct, it is not a rising main. I guess if anything, it's a falling main. We tend to refer to it as a transfer pipeline. You've got very sharp eyes that escape my attention. I'll make sure it's correct for next month.
Are you happy to call it something else if necessary?
We normally refer to it as the transfer pipeline, and that one escaped my attention.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that item?
Just a note, if I can, that construction has commenced, which is an outstanding achievement for this project.
Oh, did somebody get to move a digger?
Fulton Hogan, I believe, got to move a digger.
Item number 3, this is the Lake Waipu improvement, the Ratana wastewater treatment. Sorry, I've missed someone.
Councillor Ash.
Councillor Ash.
Yeah, it'll include this one as well. Just wondering where this all sits now with yesterday's announcement. Yeah, if you could please give us some clarification, would be good.
Council took, with regard to the Three Waters announcement, I think Council took a brave step in saying, regardless as to where the Three Waters goes through, there are a whole lot of scopes of work that need to be done, and front-footed it. And put out a rate position on that basis. That effectively ensures a degree of prioritisation of work. So if the entity is formed, that work is underway and has to take priority because it's an ongoing work. That forces, but remember this doesn't kick in until 2024. So there'll be no immediate change to that. A supplementary question, Councillor Ash?
Yes, please. So the information that we actually provided to them was based on our infrastructure at that date, as opposed to what we will obviously have at the 2024 date. How does that affect things? Obviously, we'd be going in with a higher level of infrastructure, and where does all that sit?
So what would and I'll move the Chief Executive or Arno in a second, but what effectively that would mean is we would have an increased debt position associated with that project, which would need to be met and funded by the entity B board. Remember, within Three Waters, you're not only moving your assets across, but you're moving any respective debt across as well. So it would come off our balance sheet as I see it, but Mr. Benedict, you wish?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, you are completely correct. This will be debt against Three Waters assets and will form part of the negotiations with the new entity as to how that is recovered.
Question here, Your Worship.
Question, Councillor Belsham.
I just had a comment. This project is actually partially funded by the tranche A or tranche 1 funding that was provided by central government as well. So I guess it's
correction, 5.9 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a significant amount of central government funding that is going towards this project as well.
Yeah. Councillor Ash, does that answer your question?
No, one further one, sorry, just a little one. Are we confident then that the work that we'll be doing will meet their standards of whatever they are going to be at now or 2024? Are we confident that the work that we're undertaking will meet the standards required? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, no, I don't think there is any certainty about what will be required in 2024. But what we do know is that we have to be responsible citizens and do the right thing for the environment. And we all are aware of the problems and we all are aware of the best solutions. And rather than waiting another 3 years, I think it is more prudent to continue with the work and get it done.
Can I add to that, Your Worship? I think to satisfy Councillor Ash, I do not see this project that's described here is in its current state is only referring to the transfer pipeline, and so I cannot see a new entity coming in and asking us to use a different type of pipe. The pipe is the pipe. I think what Arno's referred to is what might happen in terms of the next stages of this project, but as it stands, I would say this will be exactly as per a future entity would require.
Thank you, councillors. I'll move on. Move on to the Te Marapihi Bulls Community Centre. This is
Lake Waipu.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. The Lake Waipu one. And Ratana Wastewater Treatment Project. This seems to be all good news, to be honest. Are there any questions around it? Councillor Gordon?
Yes, there is, through your worship, there is a date mentioned at the bottom referring to the 12th of November. Is that workshops or is that when we plan to start irrigating?
That is a workshop for the irrigation aspect.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll move on. Now, Te Matapihi, this is not about the centre, it is about Bus Lane Town Square. And there is a recommendation there around seeking approval for the design. Jess, do you wish to add any comment with regard to this?
Only that construction has commenced for the bus lane in Town Square as well this month. The contractor is in the mobilisation stage at the moment with the archaeologist on site, and within the next couple of weeks you'll see construction commence in earnest.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Conflict of interest regarding the bus lane.
Thank you. So can the records show that Councillor Carter's declared an interest? So Jess, could you take us through, this is a recommendation for the design work, in effect the artwork, isn't it?
That is correct. Last month, Darwin, our artist, presented her proposal to us, which was met with some really good feedback. And now this is the formal step to hopefully have a council resolution there accepting it.
So councillors, this is artwork referring to, I think, pages 147 through to about 152 to 55.
Correct.
Councillor Wilson.
Happy to move.
Happy to move.
As worded.
Seconded. Councillor Dalgety, any questions? Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, just to say that it was the detail of the report that's in here is good, but the presentation was good as well, and the explanation around the design and how it came about and the story behind it, I thought was great. And the only comment that came from that was that hopefully that could be told as part of that, and I hope that that will continue to be so.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers? Councillor Dalgety.
It just makes me think back to a conference speaker up at New Plymouth, Maori designer, and the positive impact he was able to have in his local community.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Right of reply?
Not required, Your Worship.
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Moving on to the Taihape Memorial Park redevelopment item. Any questions around this? Speakers, Councillor Gordon.
Yes,
Gordon.
Through you, Your Worship. Jess, really like the report. The naming suggestions for the new amenities build, there's some really good stuff in there. I note that we're wanting to get more input from the community. Have we thought of using those names to hang them out there to get more people engaged, to try and, I don't know, encourage them? Or have we just basically cold called?
There was a day, or more than one day, had at the park there that Councillor Duncan might have more information on than me, where we called for suggestions from community groups and users. And some have also been submitted through other routes as well, either to elected members or to staff.
Thank you. And it does note that a decision about naming would be at a subsequent meeting.
Yes.
So obviously that's in mind with the consultation still to occur. Are you okay with that?
Oh, I'm fine.
Any further questions? I have one around this report. So, Jess, as part of this report, there is also work being done in conjunction with the grandstand?
Correct. And, sorry, Your Worship. Yeah,
so in our LTP, we set a sum of $1 million. My presumption is the indication of that work may well be in excess of $1 million. Is this a sort of an understanding type work, or where does it leave us? You know, is there a sort of a position where we get to saying yes or no as to whether we do it? And
Sure.
is that position, by the time you get to that position, have we spent $500,000 sort of thing? Where's the timeline type process around this? Sorry if I didn't put that as well as I should have.
No, I understand where you're coming from. There is a resolution from a few months ago for staff to commission detailed design of seismic strengthening of the grandstand because that will give us a more accurate cost.
Yeah.
By the time we get to detailed design, we could expect the cost estimate to be, plus 10 or minus 10% of what the actual cost will be. We have been delayed. We've been reporting delays on this because we need some of our consultant team members from Auckland to come to a site visit, and that is still not possible. So we've been reporting a delay since the August lockdown, that we really can't finalise that design until they've come for a date. We're doing as much as we can. What we have been able to confidently say in the interim is that the grandstand is less than 34% of the new building standard, and as such is going to have a little signature, a little sign put on it that advises people of it so they can make the decision before they enter the grandstand as to whether they're comfortable with that. Once we have had that site visit with the engineers from Auckland, we will be able to finalise 3 options for strengthening and come back with a more accurate cost estimate, but we are not there as of yet.
Okay, does that answer your question, Councillor Duncan? I think you might have had your hand up for a question. You're on mute, Councillor. Thank you.
Sorry, sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. No, my question actually was going back to the storage with the amenities build, but I see that that's now 95% detailed design progress beyond 95%. So I assume that that's all that decision has been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Gordon?
Yes, just a question of Jess. You mentioned the figure of 34% or 33% and the signage required. Is that a requirement for seismic risk that is done under the earthquake legislation?
Not exactly. We're doing that as a prudent and responsible building or facility owner. The way that though you may see standard yellow stickers or in bad cases red stickers on buildings, that comes from when a seismic assessment has been provided to the territorial authority and they then will go and either yellow or red sticker it. That is a process and we are following that process, but in the interim before that happens, we are putting a sticker on to be proactive about the earthquake-prone nature of the grandstand.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Apologies, there was one outstanding question from you, Your Worship, around will we spend $500,000 before we even get to the end of this?
Yeah.
No, I don't expect so. We have spent $96,000 on consultancy fees to date, and I would expect for the conclusion of design and construction monitoring by consultants and consenting fees, we will spend less than $200,000 on that all up.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the Markham Industrial Park and Rail Hub, noting there has been...
Councillor Duncan, sorry,
Oh,
Councillor.
sorry, just out of that conversation. Geez, I'm just interested, at what stage would you need to be closing that grandstand? What?
You mean in terms of safety,
Yeah.
public safety?
Yeah.
We would rely on the detailed seismic assessment that would advise us if there was something that was a life safety risk. And then the building owner or the territorial authority can make that recommendation. So far, we've reviewed the seismic report is within the PMO and we've recommended the proactive step of putting a sticker up. We then provide the seismic assessment to our building Control Authority, and they will decide if, they will inform us if they think there's any greater risk.
Thank you.
Thank you. A comment from the Chief Executive?
Yes, ultimately this is a decision that fits into my responsibility of a council-owned asset, and I've worked with the PMO and with Arno as Chief Operating Officer on the approach we've taken to date. I likened it similarly to if you're walking on a Department of Conservation track and there's a particularly dangerous piece of track for falling rock. They don't close the track, they put a sign that says please be careful. And that's the approach I've taken similarly for this, that I wish for signs to be there to say please be careful, and that you're entering it a known, in fact, as Jess has explained, a sticker which says you're entering into a facility which is earthquake, as a risk in an earthquake. Yeah, we wish to keep it open.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to the Martin Industrial Park and Rail Hub, noting that councillors did get a briefing around this. Councillor Dow, get a question?
Sorry, Jess, that I don't know this, but what exactly does the P50 or P85 design mean?
The percentage of design work that has been completed.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Lambert.
Yeah, my question, firstly, Jess, congratulations on the project report. I'm loving all the green arrows, but on the downside, of course, the red arrows stand out. But under the cost here, you've got the cost estimate for the rail siding that exceeds the current budget. If memory serves me well, that's been a feature of this report for a number of meetings. Are we still looking at funding and investment options, and it's a constant work in progress? Are we making headway?
That is absolutely, you're 100% correct. We are looking at funding options for this, and it will remain red until the point we've secured funding adequate enough to complete the project, and then it'll be back to green.
Oh, right. Excellent. That's good. So it's a constant work in progress, obviously.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
It's not getting any less red, unfortunately, but we're doing our best.
Thank you. Moving on to the Martin Water Strategy. This is sub-project A, the new bore. Any questions around that? Lots of green arrows. Councillor Wilson.
Question, rather comment if I may, but it relates back to the earlier one with regards to the pipeline down to Bulls. Here's a project also that we need to get commissioned and started on as absolutely as quickly as possible. So just urging some urgency in pursuing this one along.
Yeah, I take on board the comment, and we can call this one a falling main.
Yes, I think.
Look, unless there move on. Thank you. Moving on to I have one that I'd like to consider adding to the project management updates. The Martin Civic Centre to be reported under a PMO structure. Could that be added, please, with the agreements of councillors? I think it's important. We just need to know where we're at with these projects.
As a miscellaneous?
As a miscellaneous.
Yes, not as a full project.
Sure. No problem.
Councillors, are you happy with that? Right, thank you.
Did you do page 143, your worship? Regional consent.
Yes, I was going to do that. I've got some big ticks by it, so you're right to pull me up. The Regional Treatment Plant Consenting Program. This is page 143, and there is a recommendation with this because the recommendation as it stands is that Councillor Hera and Duncan are approved as elected members who will join the working group on the Taihepi Wastewater Treatment Plant. Councillor Hera, I note that you have declared an interest with regard to this item. Thank you very much for that. I know there has been an expression of interest for Councillor Gordon to be part of either replacing or additional to someone else. But I'll go to you, Councillor Gordon.
Oh, well, my first question of the report relates to the bottom of page 143, where it says the second wastewater treatment plant Hui was held on October 18th. Could the officer just outline who actually attended that? And well, perhaps what groups attended rather than the people involved?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I'm just opening the minutes so I don't miss anyone from the attendees. But in terms of persons that were present, there was myself on behalf of council, 2 consultants in person from WSP, and 1 WSP engineer joined by Zoom. We then had Robert Martin of Ngāti Hauiti, Neville Lomax, Moira Rokawa Haskell, Barbara Ball, Diane Saunders.
Which groups, if I may, your worship, which groups do they represent? And I'm really thinking of, I'll just be quite open here,
yep.
Party engagement. I'm just wanting to make sure you've got everybody in the room.
Yeah, please. I'd like that. So Robert Martin, and apologies, I forgot that Horizons attended as well. So we have Robert Martin representing Ngāti Hauiti, Diane Saunders representing Ngāti Tamakopere, Neville Lomax representing Ngāti Hauiti, Marge Heaney representing Ngāti Ohuaki, Moira Rokawa Haskell representing Ngāti Tamakopere.
Ngāti Hine.
I'd just like to point out, if I may, that you haven't got Hini Manu and Ngāti Paki in the room.
Okay.
And they're immediately downstream of the discharge site is their rohi. So I think we need to fix that.
Sure. Cool, thank you.
And the contact person would be in your...
Well, I'd go straight to Jordan Haynes, Jordan Winiata Haynes, sorry.
That's good. Jess, can you take that on board as an action? You too.
Sure.
I absolutely agree. That's probably the party that does need to be in the room. You expressed an option for you being party to that. Could that be an addition to?
Sorry.
I'd be happy for that to be in addition to Councillor Gordon.
So this would indicate that if somebody was prepared to move recommendation 3, that Councillors Hira, Duncan, Gordon be approved. Councillor.
Yeah, I'd just like to put it on the table why I have indicated at the beginning that this is a transparency thing for me. So after being approached by Jess and the team to be part of the elected members group, I had let Jess know that actually 3 of those people that are part of this kaupapa that are attached to Ngāti Ohuake, Ngāti Hauiti and Ngāti Whiti Kaupeka are actually my siblings. So it's probably in the, I'm letting everybody know that up front and probably going to withdraw my name from there altogether. So there's no issue of people thinking there's anything untoward happening.
So the indication, I mean, you can't vote on this because you've declared, but the indications are that you would prefer to withdraw, and Councillor Gordon is in that space. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I don't know where we're going with this because, in fact, the fact that councillors were invited to be part of it was nothing to do with necessity. It was just that my understanding was that they have invited the 2 councillors they wanted to be part of this as an addition, but not as a necessity. So it's not like we would have any sort of governance. It's really just to be there, to be supportive. And And I don't want to be exclusive in any way at all, but it was actually an invitation to Tracy and myself. And I would see that a word from Tracy with her siblings, perhaps an invitation might come to Councillor Gordon, but I would suggest that we're not in any position to appoint someone without an invitation.
Councillor Gordon?
Yeah, Your Worship, I think the role of any councillors on this group really needs to be clarified. And if this is a council group and council wishes to appoint members to it, then that's up to council, irrespective. And I'm not making a call one way or the other. So I think in view of Councillor Duncan's comments, really the makeup of this group should be clarified actually before we go any further, and why they're going to be in that forum.
Okay.
Can I clarify the genesis of the request to councillors Duncan and Hero?
Thank you.
Thank you. So it was recommended to me by senior staff members that it is the right time to have elected members on this as part of this kaupapa, because we are getting quite far down the road about the future of Taihape wastewater discharge. And I went back at the last hui on the 18th of October and asked the working group about their views on that and would they like to nominate anyone to ask. And was happy to take the recommendations for councillors Duncan and Heroa. And then to formalise that, make sure I covered all my bases, it has gone into this report requesting a decision. I would be happy to go back to them and confirm if they would endorse having Councillor Gordon there also, or instead of Councillor Heroa.
Look, just as governors, if we have the right to say who goes on what groups ultimately, so that's where it stops essentially. Look, I am prepared to move that Councillor Gordon and Councillor Duncan are approved as elected members who will join the working group for the Taihape Wastewater Treatment Plant Consent Project. You're seconding that?
No, I'd just like to signal something, Your Worship, just before we go any further.
Well, let's see before where the recommendation dies, you protect a second. So we have a motion on the floor. Go back to you, Councillor Duncan.
Just in the same manner that Councillor Hero was completely transparent, I feel that I must be exactly the same. I was a former member of the group 15 years ago. Former group 15 years ago. So I did have involvement in the previous consent process. And I'm also the chair of the Hautapu Catchment Care Group. Now, if that gets in the way, I'd really appreciate some boundaries being put in as to what that might mean.
Look,
I'm just being completely out there.
I would see your position being exactly the same position as iwi involved in downstream. So you have an interest, a non-pecuniary interest in water quality, as does the other parties in the room. I don't see that as a conflict.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hero.
My one last thing to say is I actually don't see it as a conflict. I could quite easily sit on that group and be sitting in a space with a head on of being a councillor. So I'm doing this purely because of the perceived, any perceived favouritism or something that might come of being part of it. But I totally support the recommendation.
So are you removing your conflict?
No, I'm.
All right. Well, I'm just saying. So I've got a motion on the floor that names those two people. I'll look to speakers to it. I'll speak first. I don't actually think I need to speak to this, to be honest. Take any other speakers and I'll use a right reply if I need it. Councillor Bolson.
Speaking to the motion, simply because of the fact that Councillor Gordon has significant knowledge, I believe, in this area, and has been involved in the space for a number of years. I think Councillor Gordon is an asset to this group, and I think that it's a perfect recommendation to come from around this table that Councillor Gordon sit in the space, as with Councillor Duncan as well. And quite frankly, I didn't see any conflict of interest from Councillor Hero being there as well. But certainly to speak to the motion, I'm certainly supporting it.
Can you speak to the motion, Councillor Duncan?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to speak against the motion because I think it would be good manners to take the role of asking Jess to go back to them and suggest that it would be a great thing for Councillor Gordon to be part of it as well. I don't see that would be in any way harming the process, and it would actually possibly facilitate it. So I'd like to see that done first.
You're speaking against the motion. I don't have any problem with somebody going back and saying, could somebody else be added to, for instance, Councillor Hera, but council needs to reserve its right to be able to name councillors on positions.
Absolutely, but I would just like to see that the conversation had before such a thing was moved.
Any further speakers to the motion? Councillor?
I'd like to support the motion as is.
Any other speakers to it? Well, I've actually given a right of reply, so we'll just, look, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, it's now 3 o'clock. We need to take a break. 10 minutes.
Yes, online.
Right, thank you. Welcome back
Thank you.
to council. We're moving on to item 10.5, the changing rooms at Te Matapihi Bulls Centre. And I'm presuming that Adina is online, or Jess, are you going to front this?
Adina is going to front this one.
you.
Thank you.
We have had a public forum from past councillor Jane Dunn this morning or this afternoon. I congratulate her on her tenacity if she's online listening. There are a number of options here. Adina, are you prepared to take the report as read and take any questions as we go, or how would you like to run this?
I'm happy to take any questions if you have any for me.
Thank you. Councillors, it would be useful, I think, we'll take any general questions first, but at some stage, somebody's going to have to take the bull by the horns and put some recommendations on table for discussion. So I'll take any general questions around the report first. Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I'll start off, Your Worship. Arno, it's through you. There's a number, the latter options that you've highlighted in the report on page 157, they still infringe assets in some way. I'm talking about underground assets. Could you please give us a bit of an outline, and perhaps even with the use of the table document?
So councillors that are on Zoom, we have just been provided with some drawings. Essentially the drawings cover what is in the report anyway. But that's the document that Councillor Gordon is referring to. It's just a pictorial illustration of what we're talking about.
All the illustrations have also been part of previous reports, so the imagery should be quite familiar with everyone.
Thank you very much for that, Adina.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Just to answer Councillor Gordon's question there quickly, and I'll pass the ball back to Adina when I'm done. But I think this one specifically, with regards to services, is probably best left with me. What's interesting about the building is we've got stormwater and wastewater services crossing along the back of the building towards the existing stormwater and wastewater lines that run through the parking area. Those are the ones that we refer to that will have to be moved, as well as the water lines from the tanks to the firefighting and all other services that are there under the ground. So if we would consider to put a building there, then we would have to move all those services out of the way. That's really what that refers to. There's just a bit of clarity as well. You can see that all of the buildings actually leave the right-of-way open. So in earlier discussions, I had that's incorrect.
Okay, so when the report talks about investigating the options and detailed design, that cost would also be back. So an indication of the total package would form part of that report.
Unfortunately, we don't have firm costs around those services, but we have noted that as an outstanding item for any of the new buildings that we would have to get a cost around that. We're not sure what that would be. Okay. And the rest of the answers, I'm sure Adina can answer.
Councillor Wilson.
Again, question for Mr. Bernardi. So in the report here, or in fact, perhaps for Adina, it says that the multi quality surveys have been reviewed for accuracy. So does that include information that we've just received here from Mr. Bernardi about moving pipes? Are they included in the costs that are sitting here in front of us?
No, they're not included. So one of the major ones that are outlined as not being included is the sewage line that goes nearly in parallel off the building towards the street at the front of the community centre, and that is a main sewer line that has a connection to the building, and that has not been costed, and that is not part of the costings as of item 5. The services around, so the option that the architects had presented us, which is option 3, that didn't require, I think, any, at least not the sewage line to move, because that actually excluded that area. And Maori's was very aware of that building. So if they try to stay as clear as possible from any other things that may need to be moved. Just that new option from Jane Dunn has been sort of built over the sewage line. So because it goes much further out into the car park, it impacts.
So we're talking here, so 1 and 2 are out as I see it. Option 3 is potentially live. The recommendation from Jane Dunn was essentially either 5A or 5B. Is that how you see it?
Yes, and both of them do require the moving of sewage line, which has not been costed.
Can I have a supplementary question to that, Your Worship? Because
yes, certainly.
My apologies, I think it's relevant. I'm just needing to understand a little bit more. Estimated cost of construction, what is that? I mean, what actually does that, so I just want to make sure you're not falling into any traps here. Is that purely and simply when they're on site and they start building it? Is that the cost of materials, the cost of labour, concentration, plus we've got electrical on this, plus we've got this on this, plus we've got design fees, plus we've got consenting fees? What are these estimates that we're looking at?
So the estimates are from Maori's, the QS that has done the building as well, and they included an estimation for the construction of the structure itself. Quite commonly, you always have to add the professional fees, which is the engineering, the architects, consenting fees, and all those sort of things. They're not included in construction fees. So we would have to do further investigation and get more pricing and have them spend more time on each option if that is something that was required to get a better number.
I think looking around the room, councils would need to know the project costs effectively, which would include. So I think that if we're going to go down this path of investigation, we actually need to know where we're at as a project rather than as a construction cost.
May I?
Can I add something to that then, please?
Certainly.
Because at the current stage, all our designs, they are barely at a concept level. So they need a lot more work put into it to bring it to some sort of early preliminary design for the QS to give us better indication on costings. So basically, if you want us to investigate more on all the options, that would require all the designs to move further and further down the track of actually designing it and engaging the engineers, engaging an architect and other services to make sure that that is being designed properly to a preliminary level. And that definitely has, I'm not sure what that cost actually would involve at the moment.
Yeah, look, I'll deal first of all from the staff stuff, and then I'll come back to Councillor Belsham, Hira, Duncan. Anything further you would like to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I think what Adina has done quite rightly, she's outlined what's in and what's out, and she's 5.1 says what's excluded from the information that we have to date.
Yeah.
And this allows a comparison between the various options and not the final figure. That will be the recommendation. Now, elected members may wish to ask us for a much more granular cost as part of your request of us, which you may actually also ask for fixtures and fittings as well, which will be the project cost, because a bigger room will need to have a bigger bit of air conditioning, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think we need an estimate of. I'm not sure that we need to know literally the cost of each individual light socket. sort of approach. But I would like to know a project cost. I'll go to Councillor Belsham first. Councillor Belsham.
My question was on the similar vein, like we all know where we sat when we first had this project in front of us of Tamarapihi and where we had the construction costs, but it's literally the other stuff that comes with it, the architect's fees, the engineering, the consent fees and everything that comes, project management that comes along with it. And it can absolutely skyrocket these figures that are sitting here in front of us. And to me, I would hate to make a decision based around any of these and agree to proceed and then find that we're talking about a $1.5 million bill that ends up being about a $1.5 million bill. So, yeah.
Take that on board.
Concerns.
Councillor Hira, no need now.
Right.
Councillor Duncan.
No, I think I think you've answered my question to the degree I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bernardine. Somebody else?
No, just for Councillor, Your Worship, if I may, I'm not sure if Councillor Gordon has got a question. If I may just explain the logic from a project management office perspective, the number of staff hours that we have spent on this is substantial, and what we don't want to do is spend more hours on an option that you potentially don't have any appetite in. So what we really want is more specific direction. Which of these are in and which of these are out, and where do we spend our time? Otherwise, we'll keep going back and keep going back. Yeah, so that's really mine.
Look, from the floor, I will be looking for a recommendation, but taking on board your comments, I would like to rule out 1, 2, 4A, 4B, 4C. Do other people have an opposing view to that?
And 5B.
5B, you say, well, look, can somebody put a recommendation on the floor? Councillor Carter, it's a good idea to go to you.
I would be interested in following the process for option 5A.
As well as 3 or just 5A? Councillor Cook, are you prepared to move to that?
I am prepared to move that.
So this is a question relating to this?
It is a question, Your Worship.
Is it relevant to the motion that's on the floor?
Yeah, I think it is. It's just a clarification of the information we've got in front of us.
Yeah.
And it's to Mr. Benedy. We've got 5A and 5B that where we've got significant undefined costs. In option 3, which is the original architect one, how defined are those costs? How locked in are they?
I'll pass it on to Adina if that's right.
So the costs around the architectural option are definitely clearer because we know what is involved. They know the building. The idea of it is more like a closer extension of the building. And they have already looked at a lot of things around the ramp and all that. So that the cost is probably more defined with that compared to 5A and B.
All right, look, I'll go back to the motion. So I'm looking for a seconder to recommendation 5A. Investigate 5A. You're prepared to second. Councillor Carter, so from here on, we end up, unless there is an amendment to this, we end up with a decision. Question on process? You can move an amendment, but I'd prefer that at least the speaker speaks to it before the amendment, preferably, if you're agreeable. You can move it now if you like.
Well, I'd just like to move an amendment to include option 3, 5A and 3.
All right, so we have a mover and a seconder that 3 is included along with 5A. I need to deal with that amendment first. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Well, yes, and it's been signalled by staff that this is possibly one of the options that is more aligned with the building of this building, with the architects involved with this building. So I think we need to certainly include that as an option put in front of us.
Councillor Duncan, you wish to speak to the amendment? You'll have to come off Zoom, Councillor.
Mute. Sorry. Yes, sorry, now I've lost my train of thought. I was just going to support that because we have got staff involved and their goodwill is really important and their understanding of the building. Can I say that I still think it's really important to keep, as Councillor Carter has said, 5A in there, because in fact, my experience with stages is that you need at least...
Hang on, you're only speaking to the amendment.
Oh, okay,
Three.
Fine.
So you've got to limit your conversation just to the amendment.
Okay. I think I have then, thank you.
Councillor Duncan,
yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to support the inclusion of option 3. I really think that we need to almost keep our options open until we've got, and I know that's not what staff necessarily want to hear, until we've got better costings on all this other stuff. We're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. If we're deciding to build something, I think we need a comparison. We can't just leap down the road of saying this is the answer, because actually we don't know what the answer is yet. I think there's been a considerable amount of work going to option 3, so it is a known almost. We need to find out the unknown, and I think that the unknown sit in 5A. So I'd like to see the inclusion of 3.
Look, I haven't had a lot of speakers against this, so I'm going to put the amendment to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment to include 3, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is carried. The amendment, we now have a substantive motion, 5A and 3. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
I think we've had a good discussion.
It's been an adequate discussion. Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Dalgety?
I'll be speaking in favour of the motion. I'm just conscious of Jane Dunn's presentation and her inference that we still hadn't had direct conversations with the users. Is that an issue or not?
That becomes a separate, you may wish to put that as the second recommendation.
Okay.
All right, look, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That is carried. Do you wish to move a second recommendation in terms of... Councillor Dalgety, this is your opportunity if you wish to take it.
I just like a recommendation that staff investigate or ensure that the community interests have been consulted, community users. But if
a question around scope here. Are you... It may be preferable to restrict it to those users that would use the changing rooms.
Yes.
Would you be okay with that if it was to succeed?
Yes.
Maybe to help guide any particular resolution, I note that the signatories to the Jane's presentation today are from Clifton and Bulls School. I don't think there's anyone else other than Bulls School and Clifton School. Both of those users were canvassed as part of our survey, and Adina may jump in there after they used it 10 months ago, to see what would be better and what would work and what didn't work, etc. So I think there's the option 3 that Adina has presented has considered all the options up to 5 have been considered from that feedback and other feedback as well. Perhaps we haven't necessarily consulted since then, but we have spoken with them to get their feedback.
I'm just conscious that I feel that staff feel they've consulted, but I didn't feel that Jane felt that we had consulted. So I'm not sure what Adina can do to make the public happy with that consultation process.
Can I add that we also have received surveys back from all the users. So all the users of the hall that are booking the hall, we send a survey to them and they fill it out. And that was part of the report as well.
First of all, it's your right to move the motion. And if you wish to go back and engage, you tested in this by putting up a motion. You may wish to limit that to the users or the signatories. That's your call. The argument about whether that has already happened, that will be up to councillors to decide. The only one that I would question, if you're going to do that, would be, we've been told in the submission this morning that the wearable arts would find it unusable. That they may be a signatory there, I don't know. But it's your call. It's your call.
I think in the essence of staff time and how to make this process more doable, I'm happy for it's just users of the changing rooms are consulted as per that recommendation.
Well, staff may well argue that the staff have already ensured that the community users have been consulted. that could well be the response. Unless you get this on the floor and with a seconder to it, it's offline.
I understand that.
No, the motion fails. Sorry.
Okay.
That deals, I think, effectively with this item. Now we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the feedback regarding use of Te Mata Pihi. Firstly, we need to receive that.
Sorry, Your Worship, that's an appendix.
Okay.
And so there was an appendix to the previous report.
Yeah, but do we still need to receive that as council?
No, we don't.
Okay.
It's a copy dating from February this year.
All right, we move on to the impacts of the approved roading program. And Mr. Benedy, are you going to take us through this?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I will do that. Since all the changes from Waka Kotahi with regards to approved funding, we've had about 3 iterations of the process. There's been many questions about how those changes affect our budgets and then specifically the approved budgets in the LTP. You'd remember when we made those decisions on the LTP, Waka Kotahi have not come to their final decision about funding. So there's a bit of a disconnect between the two. What this report does, that's different to all the others, it actually looks at the funding application in a more holistic way, that it includes all of the bits for the entire 3-year period that we apply for. So the roading activity management plan always looks at a 3-year works program that we then apply to Waka Kotahi for funding. In the tables that I've presented, you'll see the original funding application in August 2020 comes to 49.5 million. We then got a notification from them in May that that's been reduced to 43.2. And then finally, that has been increased again in the final approval in September to 43.9. And I think what's important there is the change from May to September is actually very small. It goes from 43.2 to 43.9. What is important, though, is how these things have moved around And that's why I've included all of those bits in the budget in all of those tables, so you can kind of follow how it moves around. The main impact for us on our budgets is when it affects operating costs. And we are fortunate in the sense that the operating costs has been reduced, so there is no impact for us on OPEX. All the impacts are on capital costs, which means it would affect our debt levels, although the changes are fairly small.
All right. Thank you very much. Would somebody like to move recommendation 1 that this report be received? Councillor Dalgetty, Councillor Gordon, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Recommendation 2, by the way, thank you for the absolute clarity around this report. It lays it out, sets it out very, very well in what has been a very confusing space. So recommendation 2, look, I'll move recommendation 2 that the council staff liaise with Waka Kotahi to request inclusion of the Hereford Street pedestrian bridge to the approved subsidised budget allocation in respect to the accompanying letter from the school's pedestrian safety. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Wilson seconding it. I'll speak to this one briefly. So as I understand it, Waka Kotahi are prepared to look at the inclusion on the subsidy rate with regard to this one under safety. Is that correct? And here you had 2 schools getting together to write to us around a safety issue, part of which has arisen because of the new subdivision. It was an original LTP decision process where we agreed to do it. It subsequently dropped out. Now there's an opportunity to re-include. With that, if we go for recommendation 2, you really do actually need to also deal with recommendation 3. I think it's difficult to do 2 without 3. But so I'll leave 2 where it sits at the moment. Any speakers, additional speakers to recommendation 2? A question, certainly.
I'm just interested, what exactly is a safety footpath versus a normal footpath?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's Waka Kotahi's got certain rules and specifications around funding. So if the work that we are proposing will improve safety, and it is for something that has a specific destination, in this case it's the school, then it triggers those rules, and they say yes, we can fund it. If it's not going to improve safety, especially for children, and it's not towards a destination, or it's for exercise or anything like that, it excludes it from those rules. So that's why that's important.
Thank you.
It doesn't mean that it's like a narrow plank as opposed to an ordinary footpath. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm speaking in favour of this recommendation. I fully support this, and if we cast our minds forward, we're going to be dealing with a lot of climate change impact, and I suspect our towns in the future are going to look very different, or probably operate in a different way to what we do now. And I think pedestrian traffic is key, and especially pedestrian traffic for children. This is fundamental, and I almost can't believe that Waka Kotahi dropped it out of the program. I see it almost should have been in there ahead of a lot of the other vehicle-related improvements.
Councillor Belsham, will you speak to it?
Yes, I'll speak in favour of the recommendation. There are a significant number of houses also in direct vicinity that have just been built, and a lot of family orientated people taking up those residences, 80 plus sections up there, so this will be utilised significantly. So I think this council is certainly looking proactively at supporting not just the school but that place of residence up there with the new subdivision. So
there's 3 speakers for the motion. Are there any speakers against? Right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. So recommendation 2 is carried. Recommendation 3, that if Waka Kotahi improves the inclusion, we're asking our team engineers to reprioritise the current work to accommodate. So I will move that, looking for a seconder too. Councillor Carter. I don't think that I need to add anything else in here. Any speakers to it? I'll put it to the vote. Sorry, Councillor Gordon.
Your Worship. Before our staff start pruning out the unsubsidised works, will they be coming back to council with some form of report?
They need to. So once you embed an LTP, it has an asset management program that runs with it. Roading is no different to that. If that changes, we just need to be notified of the change. Is that how you see it? Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. The sort of further recommendation 4, that council requests the roading team engineers to defer appropriate projects in the current unsubsidised work program to accommodate the inclusion Ngātawa shared pathway. You wishing to move that?
I'm wishing to move the first part of that recommendation up to the word or.
Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Carter. So you're requesting that they defer appropriate projects in the current unsubsidised works program, and we do have that program included, which includes Turakina Valley Road 2, Industrial Subdivision, Makiriki Road Wings Line, Henderson's Line Urban Residential Subdivision, and residential subdivisions. So we've got a mover, we've got a seconder. Do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I do. This was an initial request that was put forward, and again, it was a safety aspect, a heavy safety aspect that was involved in this decision as well as part of the LTP. And it was about Ngātawa Road being a bypass for State Highway 1 traffic with a lot of trucks utilising that road, and the safety of pedestrians. Now, we have basically authorised a housing development along Ngātawa Road where there are a lot of foot traffic utilise that part. So there's lifestyle blocks along that area, but also we've got a school, Ngātawa School, that actually utilise part of that road, and some of the students have been probably had close calls running down that road as part of their cross country. So there is a school safety aspect involved here as well. So, you know, I think it's a high priority for us as a council to actually look at this project as well. And I can't believe that the safety aspect of it wasn't taken into account actually when this decision was made.
Thank you. I have Councillor Dalgety and myself, but just a clarity around this. So if it goes through as stands in the motion, Turakina Valley Road 2 won't cut it because that's 21,000. So you're looking at $100,000 to do this work. So you're going to have, as it stands, we'd have to rule out one of those subdivisions.
What was the previous page? 167.
Just a point of clarification.
Yeah, or yeah, you're right, yeah. Sorry. So, and you...
Just a point of clarification. So in the previous recommendation, we're expecting to have reported back to us unsubsidised works that will be put off, like rejigged and changed in the process. And I guess this would be also part of that process. Would that be correct?
If I may, Your Worship, yeah, but we have to remember that's only if when we speak to Waka Kotahi, if we can't get it included in the funded program, if it's excluded from the funding program after our discussions with them, then we would have to consider other options to fund it, and we'll bring that.
So that would come back to council. So this is about including it in the discussions with the Hereford Street Bridge, is that correct?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if I could speak alone, but perhaps you might hit the nail on the head, Your Worship.
So, I'm just seeking clarification from staff here. This is quite a specific request and has been put against specific unsubsidised work. Are you prepared to give an indication, or would council be prepared to give an indication as if your motion was to succeed, which unsubsidised work gets dropped?
Sorry, could I put a question then to staff, Mr. Benedict?
Yeah.
So you signalled that there would be liaison with Waka Kotahi in regards with this being funded under the funded project first, and then if it's not, then it would come back in front of council, is that correct? Right, so I don't think we need to make a decision on what projects get shifted out until
we see if it can be funded.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the report illustrated that that was unlikely in the report. I'm quite happy with that.
Right. The reason for moving it, sorry, I'm probably still speaking on, no, I'll hold my right of reply, sorry.
Your Worship, given Councillor Belsham's intention, the motion doesn't quite read that way. Waka Kotahi is not mentioned in there in recommendation 4. And so we might have to adjust the motion if that is the intention.
And that's the view that I take. Yeah. I just wonder if the wording is quite right.
I've got a question.
I'm happy to amend it so that it reads similar to recommendation 3, that if Waka Kotahi approves the inclusion of Ngātawa Road, where are we at? Ngātawa Road Shared Pathway Project, then that following statement applies.
It's good because I'd be prepared to support it.
So what was the Ngātawa Road is unlikely to succeed?
You know, at the end of the day, Councillor, this is your motion. You put the words out. We'll check with the seconder as to whether.
I'll have a crack at responding. Yeah. So recommendations 2 and 3 refer to Hereford Street, and recommendation 2 says that we are confident that we can have that particular project subsidised by Waka Kotahi. And recommendation 3 says if Waka Kotahi do agree, then there'll need to be some changing of works, not for both from a funding perspective, and also a planning perspective. So this is all around our confidence that Waka Kotahi will indeed subsidise Hereford Street. So we park that, and now we look at Ngātawa. We are not confident that Waka Kotahi will subsidise Ngātawa. So it's a very different conversation. And so this recommendation 4 says we give you 2 options. We can either defer, so put this into the unsubsidised, which is summarised in table 6. We can plop it in there, and we can, as His Worship said, reprioritise that table 6, or you can add it to table 6 and debt fund it, so it's an addition to table 6.
Yeah. However, the recommendation Nigel has put forward is signals another conversation with Waka Kotahi that you may not be confident, but he's asking for that conversation as I see it.
Yes, with the safety aspects actually highlighted, because I don't know that they were highlighted.
So the recommendation perhaps would read the same as recommendation 2.
It's up there. Section.
4 is the same as 3 now. I put Ngātawa Road. It's road, isn't it? Not Ngātawa.
So this is saying that it signals a conversation back with Waka Kotahi for a ruling in effect, as whether they would fund it or not.
Yeah.
And that's what Councillor Belsham's getting at. Yep. So I'm happy with the motion as it stands, if Councillor Carter is happy to second it.
Could we just repeat 2 and 3 then?
Sorry?
We probably need a recommendation 2 because you've got nowhere asking staff to liaise with Waka Kotahi on Ngātawa Road.
Repeat 2 and repeat 3.
Yes.
So put-
Yes.
Right. Well, would you need a recommendation 2
Copy 2.
as well as recommendation 4? So the 2 go together. I get that.
So we have a 4 and 5.
Happy to get the process correct.
Yeah, I accept that.
Yeah.
Are you happy? And you both happy both to move?
If
The
that,
2 of you move in second
yeah,
both of
if
those.
that ensures that the process is correct, I'm happy with that.
Right.
Question,
So
please?
let's,
Question?
okay, so recommendation 4 now says we liaise and ask the question. Look, I'm prepared to put that straight to a vote.
I've just got a question, please.
As long as it's a little one, that's fine.
It is only little. Just clarification that the Ngātawa pathway, does that include Calico Line as well? Or this is just on Ngātawa Road?
No.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Lambert, do you have a question?
Oh, he was just moving it. So.
Okay, moving it.
I mean,
All right, I'll put recommendation 4 to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Now, presumably, if that happens, you move to recommendation 5, that if they approve, then we look to reprioritise. So now we're all happy? And the mover and second are still happy? Any questions around that now that's disappeared from me? To put to a vote. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Recommendation 6, that council approves the 21-24 unsubsidised work programme as presented. Now, what this would mean, where Councillor Wilson's going to go, I think. Do you wish to say it?
I just don't know that you can,
Correct.
given the previous motions up above there. So I would just, unless there's some urgency to have this approved at this meeting, I don't see that you can, because
Well, you still can, but what it says is, you could still go there and do this, but what it says is, if Waka Kotahi doesn't come to the party, then the unsubsidised work will just be as is. If Waka Kotahi does come to the program, then it's out of a different pot.
yes, but have we got those 2 jobs in the unsubsidised?
It would rule it out of being an exchange process if Waka Kotahi weren't interested.
Yes, but Your Worship, unless I'm missing something, I don't believe you've got moved that the unsubsidised work's been presented on this report included in the current. So if they weren't with the prayer one, they're not on that list. Am I not reading that right?
No, I don't think you're really right.
They're not currently in that list as to approve.
Are you referring to Ngātawa Road?
Yes.
Hereford Street.
21-24 unsubsidised works program as presented in this report, noting that the unsubsidised list of projects presented in this report are included in the current 20. So
They will be added.
but you're saying you can still add them. By accepting this, you could still add them at a later stage? If that's the case, I'm happy, but I wouldn't want to see.
Well, you can, it'd be an extension of budget.
You, an option might be for us to, in the recommendation, to provisionally include Ngātawa Road and to include Hereford Street as provisional items. And to say, because I'm conscious of budget, of capital spend, and this is the construction period, that the further we delay this, it's impacting our ability to deliver those other items.
Okay.
If that's okay?
Would that meet your requirement?
Yes, it would do, yes.
You're chair of assets, it's your call.
See, there could be a problem without having them included in there in some way or form, albeit provisionally.
Okay. So, do you wish to have a motion, please?
The motion as it reads, presented in this report with the inclusion of, as provisionals, Ngātawa Road and, is it Breedon's-on or Hereford Street, that bridge?
Hereford Street.
Hereford Street.
Ngātawa Road, shared pathway, and
Hereford Street. Safety enhancement or whatever it might be, so we get that word safety in there.
Estuary Bridge.
Your worship, well,
I don't think it's right, to be honest.
Just get rid of the noting. Oh, yeah. Do you think that it needs to have the noting in there?
It's already 21-24, it's been approved.
What this is talking about is an item relating only to unsubsidised work. And by saying with the provisional inclusion of Ngātawa Road and Hereford Street pedestrian crossing, you're putting them in the bracket of potentially unsubsidised work.
They both potentially are. That is my point.
Yeah.
Because Waka Kotahi may come back and say no, and we have not listed them in there in our potential for works. So that is my reasoning for having them included in this recommendation.
Well, the decision will come from council.
Your worship, while wordsmithing is going on, can I ask a general question about unsubsidised work? How often do we actually review that? Is that an annual thing where we go, gosh, we wanted this project, but is it really needed now, given everything else that's arrived on our plate? I mean, is it a rolling feast? How does it work?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's kind of the things that are important to council in the background weighed up against some roading engineering perspective of what's more important than and what will bring a bigger value. And normally what we do is we bring it annually to your attention, say this is the unsubsidised for this year. Are you happy with it? All I've done now is I've just shown you all 3 years. But generally by about August, September, we'll say this is the unsubsidised for the year, just so you'll be.
Okay, thank you.
This will allow us to get on with the other projects and hold those ones until you decide.
Right.
I'd just like perhaps brackets put in after the Ngātawa Shared Road pathway, bracket State Highway 1 heavy traffic bypass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. However, could somebody want to move it?
I would have moved it.
We deleted you.
That's fine, happens regularly.
Seconded, Councillor Jalkiri. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, I think I've said all that needs to be said on the matter.
Any speakers to it? quickly put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. All right. Sorry if I've made it harder than it needed to be, gentlemen and ladies.
I'm making notes.
The last pages.
We now move into item 11. This is the annual resident survey 2021. Mr. Forster and Ms. Gordon, and just a little bit of background to this one. So this was a paper that was presented to Finance. It was deemed by the committee to be far more suitable to be put in front of full council as the appropriate, partly along the lines of transparency and everybody involved. Parts of it are a sobering read, illustrating on areas that we need to pay attention to. What I would like to do, possibly first, is get a response from staff as to where they see this report and any indications of how we intend to deal with it. Does that meet with the approval of councillors? First, as a background to this. But Mr. Forster, it's your report.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Just one thing before delving into that. Notice at the very beginning of the report, just in section 1.2, saying our report was presented to the Finance Performance Committee meeting in November. That should be September, sorry. I was preempting about the improvement plans, which will answer your next question. So essentially from here, after this discussion, we'll come back to respective committees around what the next steps will be. So again, we did this last year with where those left off, so that'll also be a highlight around benchmarking if we manage to achieve those or not. So again, we'll pull out various parts and take into consideration comments that was received specifically, which will help paint a bit of a better picture as opposed to purely looking at the statistics highlighted.
Thank you. To the Chief Executive, you wish to comment?
I would comment, Your Worship, that I agree it's a sobering read and this is my responsibility. I look at the survey in a way that has staff and their organisation improving. We've moved to the happy or not system. I've previously reported on that system being our point of service assessment. So we are getting data now in as close to real time as possible. Whilst that can't change the results of this survey, it does allow us to look at items in the future as they come in and to address them promptly.
Councillors, take any questions from you. You are finding it sobering reading.
Councillor, looking for questions or comments?
Question page 173, and the first dark bullet point down there, combined satisfaction for fix-it forms fell from 19% in 2020 to 13% in 21. The fix-it form process, is that still work in progress, or has it been actually enacted, the change to that process and the feedback that people get when they fill out a form rather than just going into a void, they do get feedback. So where are we at with that process?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we are still underway with the project. At the moment, we've made some improvements that we can manually. I've made a few improvements like on the website, changing it from fix-it form to RFS, so we're using consistent language through the organisation. what we are working with is twofold. There's a fix that we can put in place with our current system so that responses are more automated. So the person who fills in the RFS will get an automatic reply to say that it's been received and what they should expect. And we can do that relatively simply, and we're also going to change it to not an opt-in to get feedback but an opt-out so that people will hear from us. It does require a bit of manual working around, so I know you know, or we've heard Luke speak about projects he's working on, and he's looking at that for us at the moment. That will probably be a short-term fix that we can implement soon. And then we're working with Magic, who is our software program where the RFSs sit, on whether we can actually get something better, because at the moment, the system that Luke's putting in place would mean that everybody gets everything that's on the form, and it just looks a bit clunky. It will get all the notes and everything, so we need to make sure that staff are aware that if the whatever they're typing in would go to the recipient as well. So there's a bit of sort of training for people on that approach. So we'd rather have a system that we could actually work with a bit more, that's a bit more automated, but also requires some manual input. I suppose a bit like a tracking system with parcels, that sort of thing, so they can actually go on our website and track them. So we're working with Magic on what a solution might be. There is a council, I think it's Nelson, that's doing that at the moment, and Luke's in discussions with them about how easy it is to bring that module into our Magic module. So sorry to be long about the explanation, but it is a work in progress and it's high on our priority list.
Yeah. It's hugely important when I know it's always the driver from the operational side of things to go through the correct process about filling out a request for service if there's an issue, if there's a pothole, if there's a light out or whatever's required. And I think it is, it's extremely important. And these results obviously point to that, that it's hugely high on the priority list to get it right. Yeah.
Sorry, the complicating factor with it is we do have a lot of external contractors doing the work, like Higgins, for example. And so when they finish the work, we need to put some rules around whose responsibility it is to fill in the final fields to say what was done when, and close it off and feed back to the customer. So it's whether that sits in-house with us or with Higgins, and we've got to work through that process as well.
To start from me, presumably this has been referred back to the appropriate budget holders within each one of these sections. So the roading team will have had a review of all the comments and things that they may be able to look at. Sadly, we know that there's going to be a series of comments around the new build at Te Marapihi, and there's a whole process around what we can do and can't do to improve that. Roading, there are some constructions around literally the budget figures from Waka Kotahi. But it is as I said, sobering. In terms of the water strategy that we're working on and all the work that has been done over the last 5 years, do we document that story well enough on what we are doing, what we're trying to do in terms of the website and so on?
That's a question. No, and it is a work on for us to increase our communications on our projects. This being in the top 3, I would guess, that Carol's working on to increase the public communication. It was identified in, I think, assets and infrastructure as an undertaking.
No, it's in
this one?
Yeah.
So,
and we said we'd bring the comms plan back in November.
Yeah, I'd just like to share something also, and I'm sure people will jump on me for saying this. the council recognises that it has the need to upgrade our water systems, and we've been spending quite a lot of money. But I'd also comment, I've been to now a couple of properties that had complained of insufficient water pressure and discoloured water. And when I asked them around how are your neighbours, and they've actually said, well, the neighbours are better than us, which indicates to me a little bit the question of, yes, we've got an ageing plant and we're doing something about it, but the time that the pipes were put in the ground to service our network were probably the same time that the pipes were put in from the road to the property. So, I'm not trying to dodge the issue here, but sometimes you also have to look at the internal reticulation on properties. But people will see it as me trying to dodge it, unfortunately. But is there a way, for instance, for us to be able to say, well, this is the water pressure on these lines, that yes, they are, for instance, operating at 2 bars and have consistently operated that, or how do we do that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so what we do is we test all our hydrants on a 5-year cycle. So we do 20% a year, and that includes a static pressure test. So we do that all over all of our networks, and that's how we know more or less what it is. The pressure in Martin specifically is particularly healthy. It's far above the 2 bar minimum level. It also depends on where the complaint comes from and how people use the water. If it's, as an example, an older connection that's quite small and the flows are quite high, it produces a lot of losses and the results poor. It just depends. It depends on where it's from, how they're using it, and what's going on. But we would investigate all of those. If we get a request for service, we'll go and have a look.
So you do point out when it's likely to be the connection street to house. Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Belsham, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Belsham.
I just had one other question. In the report, it talked about contacting council, and satisfaction went from 52 down to 39%. Have we identified anywhere in there where there may have been any issues that have created that to drop? So a 52% satisfaction rate last year, or the previous year I should say, down to 39% around contacting council. Has there been anything that's been delved into to understand why that's dropped?
Carol, was it started yet, or was it?
George, I think, is looking to see what.
What bullet point was it? Sorry, just so I can then.
Same page as the fix-it form, 173, and it is directly below it.
Oh yeah, compliance satisfaction with contacting council. So I think it's more a case of reading into some of the commentary of what people are feeling. Some of the feedback we've been getting is actually the complete opposite to that. Some of the physical feedback that obviously doesn't show up in here is saying you guys are doing a wonderful job communicating council issues with us, including not just the first round of COVID, which people really highlighted, but the most recent one. So it's hard to say until you read into the commentary a bit more. I'm not front-facing in terms of taking phone calls every day. Don't receive a huge amount of those. Can I get help with this outside of the sort of policy realm of things? So it's a bit hard for me to directly answer why it may have, outside of sharing the office with Leah. But again, the feedback we get on the website and Facebook, which I see directly, seems to be really positive.
I suppose I'll just add to that if I can, Your Worship. Well, if you look on page 24 where this question is, it literally is, how satisfied are you with your experience contacting council? And I think that's one of the issues that we have. I mean, is it phone? Is it email? Is it person walking in the door? Is it someone down the street? We just don't know, which is why moving to a more user experience is going to be more valuable in the future because we'll be able to give you answers where there are issues raised and where they are and how people are contacting us, because there's nothing further unless, like George says, we delve through each commentary. There's nothing more that that question actually asks.
Councillor Taugeri?
George, if someone has got positive feedback, where would they take that outside the survey?
So a lot of the time it's something that's obviously just begun with Mr. Beggs is around our Aropatama stuff, and so a lot of the time, and it's something that doesn't get seen publicly, but staff are putting it into their Aropatama, which is around their performance, and then it does get fed back to managers, so it's those good stories that get seen internally, but it is hard to publicly show that when you have a phone conversation with someone. So I actually spoke to someone around the food business grading bylaw on the phone, absolutely delightful to deal with, and they were really nice to me. He said, thank you so much for calling me back with the information, but it's quite hard to sort of portray that in a public manner.
Councillor Duncan, then Councillor Hira, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Mine's just around reporting. My little brain is a bit challenged. And on page 18, for instance, of this report, and by the way, thank you so much. There's so much information which I find invaluable. But the graph there goes from 2015 to the right up to 2021. And then the next page, it's the opposite. It goes 2021 to the right to 2018. And I just wonder if that's the sort of thing that really trips me up and slows me down. And I just wondered if that could become consistent.
Absolutely, good point.
Thank you.
Councillor Hira, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Hira.
Just a comment to say that it is sobering to read, and there are some quite negative comments that are in that are feedback, but actually there's some quite positive comments as well. And as far as transparency is concerned in my mind, it's for people that make comments like nobody's ever going to see this. You only have to read it to say your comment is there in black and white. So I think it's good, and that we're potentially they could be things that you hide away, but actually our council has been straight out there and saying this is what we're getting, because reality is it doesn't. You know, you're not going to satisfy everybody.
Yeah,
all of the time.
Your comments are absolutely apt. This is warts and all.
Yeah.
And a lot of councils would not do this.
Yeah. So,
Councillor Wilson.
My thoughts are exactly. Thank you to the council for the council staff for actually giving it to us verbatim and warts and all, as you say. To acknowledge what Tracy was just saying, there are some great comments in here, but this whole document is full of opportunities. That's all I see is opportunities. There are some things in there where we can just park and move on, but there are far more opportunities in here than anything else that I can see. And a lot of those opportunities that are sticking out in here are leading us down a path of where we need to engage better, show ourselves better, tell better stories, and do a number of better things that rectify this. It's a document full of opportunities. That's my comment. But thank you for putting it together, and thank you for sharing it verbatim with all those warts and all comments, to quote them here.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, I've got a query on page 180, and it's about the roading network. And considering the amount of money we spend on that roading network, this one is sort of starting to trend in the wrong direction. So, but I wonder, are those comments reflective of the actual road condition or how that contract is operating? It seems to be getting polarised. The middle ground people are gone, and we've got about the same people which are trending down, and people who are saying it's definitely worse than last year, and everybody else has seemed to evaporate.
Look, go back a couple of assets meetings ago, and in the long-term plan meetings, I signalled we were replacing our roads, and our roads were at a very high standard. The budget cuts from the funder has meant we can no longer maintain the roads at the standard that they've been maintained at in the past. That's just a reality.
Is this reflective of what his worship is alluding to, or is this something else?
If I may comment on that through you, Your Worship, I completely agree with what the Mayor is saying. Although this is one of the traps of using this as a tool to define how we're doing, because what we're doing is we're asking people with no technical knowledge of roading and how the road condition is measured and recorded against all the requirements from NZTA or Wakakatai. We're just asking them what they think. So that's not based, the outcome of that is not based on any technical knowledge of any budget changes or anything like that. And that is one of the challenges of collecting information in this way.
And there is one specific thing that I'd like to bring up within these reports, the Lower High Street toilets. So there's, they were an old site right next to a high hygiene food site. We've got rid of that out of our network. But there was, in the reports, there was a consideration of where the bus connection is at. Earlier on, there was a conversation around moving the bus stop in Martin up to where the new toilets are, either of the two new toilets. Could I just ask staff, and where are we at with this? And is there a paper coming to council, or what happens with regard to this?
Yeah.
I can answer that, Your Worship. I have had discussions with the intercity bus company.
Yeah.
The last one was probably about 12 months ago, and I sent the map where the new ones were, and that we'd offered to put a bus stop by the new toilets, and they said they'd get back to us, but it really wasn't high priority to them. All the new coaches have toilets on them, and it's also not a stop where they stay for any length of time. It's more just a pick up, drop off. So they were happy for it to remain where it was.
But they are happy to remain. I guess it's people waiting for a bus that are the issues, not people on the bus. Council, do you have an appetite to bring this back for discussion at council?
Your Worship, I think that would be positive. I mean, I know that Intercity might not want to go there, but if you're using bus services, sometimes you just got to hang around and wait, because they're never early and they can sometimes be quite late. So I think there's a little bit of validity here, but.
Councillor Dalgety.
I think their current location, we're looking to develop that corner of town, and that could affect the Lou situation. So I'm happy to wait to see what ends up happening with the upcoming developments.
Councillor Hira.
As a user of both of those two new toilets, when I've come through Martin, I'd like to say that they're awesome. Compared to the ones we've gotten rid of. And we actually, when we've brought people through here, we use them. They're an excellent asset.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson, you're in charge of assets.
I would comment that there's not a lot of point in doing reports or bringing anything back if there's no desire or appetite from user bus or whoever it is that is in that network to move their location. There may be some logistics that they have to think about in the background that we're not aware of. So we could do all the planning in the world and they come back and go, no. So if they don't have a desire to move the bus depot, then I don't see we should be doing a lot of work to try and figure out what a new bus depot might cost, where we're going to put it, how we're going to sit it in there, what land we're going to use, and all those sorts of things that come with it. I don't see any point in doing that.
Just a sign on the street.
So
no, it's a bus shelter in the station, somewhere to sit in the cover, and which footpath you put it on, and which side of the road you put it on.
Well, look, what I might do, it's an assets department.
Thank you.
If you wish to bring it up in your agendas and discussion with the staff, then
I'll speak with Miss Prince offline.
Right. The one last closing thing from me, just in terms of the water one, when we get complaints around, dirty water, low pressure, discoloration, is there a map of the network? Because my understanding is that one end of the town where it receives its water first is likely to be much lower in complaint level because of the dead end network situation in the network. Is that real? And can we do anything about it?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, that is real. As you move towards the dead ends on the network, the water is not used for longer, and in the bits further up the network, the water moves along much faster. We've got an asset management system called Asset Finder where we record everything that's noted against the request for service, and that puts us in a position that we can actually bring that kind of information up in a GIS format to look at where all the complaints are. Yeah, so yeah, it is definitely doable.
Okay, thank you. Look, I'll close it off there now. We have got some work that obviously the Chief Executive illustrated with Scorden that's going to be coming online. We have got work about receiving point of time information. So I appreciate that. Moving on to item number...
Move reception of the report.
Yes, please. Are you offering?
Yes, I'll move for reception of the report.
Seconded, Councillor Dalgety.
Yep.
Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried, thank you. Moving to item 12, the minutes from committees. I'm assuming someone will move them as a block. Reception. Councillor Hira, and a seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Recommendations from committees. 13.1. Recommendation 1. Council approves or does not approve. From Bulls Community Committee, the Bulls would request rubbish bins and regular collection be organised in the picnic area of the Bulls River for a 6-month trial. Ask that the main contractor be asked to action this. This will be a trial to see if there will be an increase in illegal rubbish dumping. Is there someone that wishes to move this? Councillor Carter moving. We're seconded to it. Councillor Wilson, you seconding?
Happy to second it and I'll speak to it as well.
Do you wish to speak to it first? You're the mover.
There had been bins down on the river picnic areas, which were at some stage vandalised, and they were removed in that case. But from then on, there was rubbish just being dumped there for the sake of it, and further along the river edge. And what the committee is looking at is the fact that whether that bin's put back again, it'll actually detract from people having it go down through the walkways that are in the area, and it'll actually accumulate in one spot if there's fly tipping that's going on. So that's the main thing that they're looking at, and that having it regularly emptied rather than just overflowing as they were.
You wish to speak to it?
Yes, Your Worship. I like the fact that it's a 6-month trial. It's been well documented that there's a bit of an issue down in that area, and I would actually see this as probably only just the start of trying to address a bigger problem down there. So I think this is a fairly cost-effective way to start looking at the issue that's down there. So I would endorse that.
Any other speakers to that?
If I may, Your Worship, thank you. This is a really important one for us from a Parks and Reserves perspective. I had a long discussion with Murray about this. The area that's under consideration is Horizon's responsibility. It's not ours, first of all. Secondly, we do not have the resources. We can't do this. If we're going to consider this, we would have to outsource it. We do not have the staff or the equipment to do this trial for 6 months. We have existing contracts to clean city centres or town centres. And additionally, we could add it onto that, but it would be unbudgeted spend. It's really important, I think, that we realise it is a Horizons function, and potentially what we can do is have a discussion with them and ask them to improve. That's really where it sits. Thank you.
Sorry. Put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? I think we better go back and just do this carefully. Can I have a show of hands over those in favour of the motion? Please. 1, 2, 3. Are we up? 1, 2, 3. I've got 3. Is there any increase on 3? 4. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion's lost.
Your Worship, may I ask of Mr. Bernardi, seeing as this motion has been lost, are you intending to contact Horizons and have a discussion, or would you like a recommendation to that extent?
I intend to have a discussion with Horizons to see if we can improve the situation.
Thank you.
Can I suggest that's an undertaking?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we just pause while we have that? Did you get that, Ash? Oh, I'm so sorry. Responsibility.
We're slowing down, guys.
Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gordon. Oh, sorry, just some, yeah, thank you.
Are you happy?
I am now, Your Worship.
Right, move on. Recommendation 2. Council approves or does not approve that the request RDC to contact Wallace Developments to have a conversation about their funds.
I'll be happy to move.
Happy to move.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Yeah.
We've got a third. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation. Now we're going to 32 Ratana. Recommendation 1, that council approves or does not approve the recommendation from Ratana Community Board on the 5th of October 21. And that is that council provide the Ratana Community Board with a discretionary fund of $500. Sorry? Have I got this wrong?
No, asking a question when you're finished.
Recognising any future fund needs to be considered as part of the annual plan. So this is a discretionary fund that they would get, whereas the other areas contribute to their own funds. Question?
Yeah, my question is, does the Ratana Community Board not have a project allocation fund similar to the committees?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Your Worship, I went along to the Ratana Community Board on this because the request came from them last or a couple of meetings ago, asking for a fund that wasn't ratepayer funded, and I know that the Taihape Community Board has a fund, so did extensive research and found that in 2009, in the long-term plan, that both boards were offered the opportunity to have a $5,000 fund, discretionary fund, and it was paid for out of the Taihape Community Board area and the Ratana Community Board area. Taihape Community Board agreed to it, and it's been in place since 2009. and Ratana community wanted to do their own consultation with their community in year 2 of the LTP. For some reason, whether that was council or Ratana themselves, that consultation never happened. So the fund has never been available to them. And they have small things that they want to do, like purchase a rubbish bin and paint a door of a kaumatua's house, that sort of thing. And so we went to the meeting and said to them, you know, we recognise that there's a need for a small fund, and we can pay for that this year out of their discretionary, out of the democracy budget. But if they want to relook at that $5,000 fund that's paid for by the Ratana Community Board area, then we would do that as part of that annual plan. And they're going away to think about that, and also whether it's 5,000 or a different amount, and that'll be done as part of that annual plan.
So are you saying we hold off until?
No, we should do this. Fall too hard to not.
I'm happy to move it.
Thank you.
Happy to second.
You wish to speak to it?
No.
Shall I put it straight to the vote? Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. Yeah.
So through you, Your Worship. So at the meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about development out of the Ratana area, and the new subdivisions that are going in. There's 2 or 3 now that, and some of them already have houses built on them. But the current Ratana community boundary doesn't include those areas. So what we said we'd undertake as staff is that we would approach Statistics New Zealand and advise them of those areas and see if they could look at the boundary line. Normally, Stats contact us periodically to see if there's been new subdivisions in the area, but we feel like we should just front this one and actually advise Statistics New Zealand that they're to have a look at this earlier. So that's what this relates to.
Yeah, look, I'll move this one. It makes common sense that that community as it grows is included. Looking for a second or 2. Councillor Hira seconding. I don't think I need to speak to this one. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Tuki. Have we not done this?
Well, this is probably,
Oh.
that's just because it came from policy planning.
Is adopted for consultation. This is the local Easter Sunday trading policy is adopted without amendment. Put by somebody moving.
Already been done.
Seconding.
Did we not do that?
I thought we did this.
We did, but it has to come from a recommendation
Oh,
from
right,
policy
okay.
planning.
Happy to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second.
So Councillor Wilson seconding, Councillor Gordon's moving. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried.
Can we just amend this to approve it? No? Oh.
Right, sorry.
Yep. Have you caught up with me?
It's not been going through this.
Yeah.
I think we've still got one more.
Yes,
on
yeah.
this one.
This is
Oh, no, on this one, you go up a little bit.
Oh, sorry, I understood.
Yeah, that was one question.
the screen.
Oh yeah, there's been remiss here.
Back to the one, yeah.
And finance, if you go up a bit, please. Sorry, thank you.
We've done that one.
We've done that one.
Yes. So, yeah, second.
Next one is the recommendations from Martin Community Committee. This is recommendation 1. Do you want to take us through it?
This is a late item. You should have this piece of paper on your tables. The developers of Bredon's Line Stage 2 contacted the Chief Executive about 4 or 5 weeks ago and asked how they get the second stage renamed. And the advice to them was to put the names to the Martin Community Committee, who would then make a recommendation to council. So that's now occurred, and we only received this recommendation back from the Martin Community Committee yesterday. So, and it's important that we confirm or discuss this today so that the developers can get on with the work. So there's a late item, a recommendation to accept the late item, and then also the Martin Community Committee recommendation is included as well.
Councillor Wilson.
Moving.
Seconding.
Yep.
Let's get this right. Are you happy that this goes straight to a vote?
Yes, and yes, yep. I was at the committee meeting.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. That deals with recommendation 1. This is the next one is essentially the naming of Campbell Place. Are you wishing to move? Seconding, Councillor Hira. Any discussion? Put to the vote. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Does that now take us through to public excluded? Sure. Would somebody like to move that we go into...
Excuse me, Your Honour. I mean, sorry. Still doing it.
Have I missed your hand up?
Yes. I just have a question. I wondered, is it a matter of timing that there are no minutes from the Taiba Community Board?
They haven't been received.
No, they have been received, just not finished.
Oh, okay. They're not quite finished, apparently.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Would somebody like to move that we go into public excluded for the reasons given? Councillor Belsham, Councillor Carter. For the vote, those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried.
Yeah, I just need to unstop the light.
Thank you.
Lighting area town with the There's got to be somewhere that's the wrong side of the tracks. Splitting his kilt.